All right, welcome to the Adventurers Club of Los Angeles. My name's Rich Mayfield, member 1211. I'm your programs chair this year. We are broadcasting during this pandemic, skeleton crew, but still bringing you stories of adventure. So if you like these stories, please subscribe to our channel, like this video, and definitely hit that bell icon so you can be notified when we post new content. So tonight, I have Jenny Meatball Carrington with us, and she is the founder of the Mother Earth Initiative, and she just walked all the way from Delaware to California, right?
That's right.
So you are a hiker or a walker or a traveler or a trekker, right?
That's right.
So first of all, Jenny Meatballs, right? Is that your stage name or what's Meatballs? Where'd that come? That's not your legal middle name, is it?
No, it's my legal first name, obviously.
Okay.
No, just kidding. So Meatballs actually has a fun story behind it. I got the nickname in college when I recruited a bunch of friends after the bar to come to a meatball sub shop in town at 4 a.m. And, I saw a huge vat of meatballs behind the counter and the guy who looked like Mario from Mario Kart.
Uh-huh.
And I said, Pepe, I'm going to eat all your meatballs.
So you're known as the girl who loves meatballs.
I am the girl who loves meatballs. I don't know what happened that night really, but I ended up getting a free meatball subs for the rest of college. Now that translated a lot later on into an alter ego, a personality, a comedian. And when I first hiked the Appalachian Trail, everybody gets a trail name, and so they called me Miss Meatballs.
So
Jenny
you
Meatballs.
kind of self-assigned that trail name.
A little bit.
Yeah, okay.
A little bit.
Well, that's fine. So this hike across Earthwalk 2019, correct? Mm-hmm. This wasn't the first time that you actually walked a long trail. You did the Appalachian Trail before.
I walked 140 miles on the Appalachian Trail, so it's actually a short distance compared to the 2,182 miles that it is.
Where'd you walk to from?
I walked from Bennington, Vermont through Franconia Ridge in New Hampshire.
So that's a pretty beautiful area.
It was not only a beautiful area, but it's also the hardest ranked area in the entire trail.
Why is it ranked hard?
Just in terms of the terrain, it could be the altitude, or it could be the rock formations, or it could be because there's a lack of water available, lack of services. So there's lots of different factors that go into how they rank the trails.
So your first experience was the Appalachian Trail, and I think the Appalachian Trail is a pretty nice trail comparatively. Mm-hmm. But what you did for Earthwalk 2019 was you started on what's it called again? Sorry,
the American Discovery Trail.
The American Discovery Trail, mm-hmm. which is a route that goes across the continent, basically from east to west, right?
Or west to east. It's a trail that's actually over 5,000 miles, depending on which route you take. They have two alternatives. It's either 5,000 or 6,000 miles. That goes from Cape Henlopen in Delaware, actually all the way to San Francisco. So the American Discovery Trail is a formation of smaller national state park trails and a combination of rail trails and backyard sort of sidewalks to be able to connect to form one long trail across the U.S.
So how is that starting off in Delaware? Did it start off on a nice trail like Burlington, Vermont, or?
I started off at the beach.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep. So you dip your feet. I dipped my feet right in the Atlantic Ocean. Mm-hmm. And, I was a little nostalgic. I wanted to start in New York, actually, because I've had this bi-coastal New York, LA life.
Right.
But the trailhead was in Delaware, and I had at that time committed to doing the American Discovery Trail. So I made my way to Delaware, and it basically went from a state park at the beach right into the roads.
So you said you're committed to this trail. Why were you committed to it? Why were you doing this? I mean, you weren't Forrest Gump in it, right? You just didn't want to take a run one day and, decide to start running across the U.S.
So I actually was recruited for this hike.
Interesting.
I had a partner when I first started off that I had met on the Appalachian Trail. So
who's that? What's his trail name?
His trail name is Nemo.
Nemo. Because he was always lost.
No. I think maybe it was because he was the most fun fish on the whole trail.
Oh, there you go.
He's a great guy, and he was interested in my company, We Are Mother Earth, and had been looking for someone with like-minded values and priorities to do a documentary across the U.S. about climate change, talking to different people and their experiences with climate change.
So let's dive into that. So you said, we mentioned at the beginning, We Are Mother Earth is your company. Can you kind of explain to us what We Are Mother Earth stands for?
I can.
I mean, we can guess.
Yeah. So I'm sure, as you can guess, it's planetary, right? It's environmental.
Right.
That's at the most fundamental level. Right now, our society functions, there's a major problem. We function people separate from the land, separate from the earth. Environmentalism is a cause you can take on. But We Are Mother Earth really started with the concept that we all share the same mother, and that Mother Earth is the thing that connects us, and that respecting Mother Earth and learning to live with Mother Earth and in harmony with Mother Earth really starts from learning to respect our own mothers and women. So this trek had multiple meaning for me, because it was me going out there on my own to sort of come into myself as a female, as a mother of the earth. And it also then, my company, from a business standpoint, then says, okay, well, how do we use what we know about how humans and the earth interact and actually change urban planning to support practices that are good for the land and its people?
That's interesting, because I think most people, think of going out into the woods and being conservation minded, maybe leave no trace when you're out there. But the fact of the matter is that a large portion of the population, the vast majority, lives in an urban setting. So is that kind of what you're talking about in terms of trying to change the mindset in that urban setting?
So more and more people we know are moving into urban areas, right? So after the Industrial Revolution, we saw an influx of people into the metropolis. And so we need to figure out how to support community living in urban areas where food sovereignty is a reality.
What's food sovereignty mean?
It means that we know where we're getting our food from, and that we are not dependent on the global web of food delivery from the inland to the metropolis in order to survive. So food sovereignty is that the community can provide its own food for itself, or the household can provide its own food for itself. So
I guess the primary drive for We Are Mother Earth is to kind of educate people as to how we can do that better?
Exactly. So it's for people to have a family and a tribe. People who want to evolve and learn to live more consciously. People who want to know how protecting the environment can be done at home, right? So you don't have to go out and become a conservationist. You don't have to become a biologist. You don't even have to become a farmer. But how we can create a lifestyle brand based on practices that are good for the earth and for our bodies.
So I can see how this walk kind of goes in line with that, because you need to talk to people across the United States and get their input and kind of like find out how people are living, right? Because I mean, if you live in one city all your life, well, that's the only perspective you had. So was part of this trying to gain some perspective on how the rest of the country lives, so to speak?
That's exactly what it was. So talking and really listening to people. How has the weather changes affected your agriculture? How has your local school taught you about gardening? I mean, these are the types of questions that are important to ask, but there's so many stories from people all over the U.S. that they want to share. They're proud of their region, their bioregion, their water source, their water activities, or maybe it's the ranching, or maybe it's the organic garden, or maybe it's the, I see that you actually have spears here, maybe it's the hunting, maybe it's the urban vegan restaurant. Everyone has their own story with how they're communing with Mother Earth. And learning and sharing those stories through media was something that the Earthwalk was able to provide back. So I could get the stories. You might get a story if you take a plane and meet someone new, and then what do you do with it? You hold it for yourself. But in creating a lifestyle brand and doing the walk very publicly, I was able to create a trail. I was walking a trail, but I was also creating a trail of stories.
Right. So let's get back to that trail. So
Yeah.
as you're going along the trail, you're picking up stories from people, and you're kind of telling your story as you go. So you started in Delaware. We talked about that, and you had a nice dip in the Atlantic Ocean, but then you're road walking for a long time, and probably some blisters started, right? So can you tell us about how kind of like that first segment went in terms of kind of getting your feet wet, not your feet wet, but your feet messed up and kind of like settling into the trail, so to speak?
Absolutely. So a lot of people are curious about the trials and tribulations of the actual physical aspect of the walk. And I will say that in the first month is when I felt those the most. I started off with walking sticks to help my knees. You know, I did train for the walk. I trained by started walking 2 miles a day, then 3, 5, 6. You know, I think I got up to maybe 7 or 8 miles a day, but let me tell you, 8 miles a day is different than 20 or 25 miles a day.
Oh, yeah.
So I started off slow. I ramped up from 12 at the beginning, and I was using my walking sticks. I had knee braces. I would take Tylenol if I needed to. I had blisters on my feet that I was managing with blister care. I was a ballerina, so I know blister care in and out.
Take care of your feet.
You know, you walk through a little bit through the pain, but you also listen to your body. So if your body says it's time to rest, it's really important to listen to your body.
So yeah, and you know, 8 miles doesn't seem like a lot, but it is on pavement for that first part, right?
Right.
Well, I guess you went from sand to pavement, probably the worst two things that you could walk on.
Right.
And you had a heavy pack, right? Like you weren't just walking like someone would take a stroll. You're walking with a pack on, right? And camping this whole time. So this is a hike. So tell me about that pack. Like what did you start with in terms of like how much it weighed and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, sure thing. So I was very fortunate, actually. My hiking partner, Nemo, did gift me or lend me a ton of gear. So he gave me some ultralight sleeping pads, you know, ultralight sleeping bag. He recommended what type of pack I should look for. He helped me go through all my gear and ship some stuff home before we even started to make sure my pack was as light as it could be, but it was still very heavy because I was carrying camera equipment. We were gonna collect these stories, right?
So like not like a cell phone.
Well,
but
I
like
had
a
2
full-on-
cell phones
Okay.
and a gimbal. And so my gimbal had a case, and it was light. It was the most lightweight gimbal I could find, but I mean, it was still about an extra 3 or 4 pounds.
Did you finish with that gimbal?
I did not. I did
You
not.
start off with the best intentions, and then
I
there
was
goes the
doing
gimbal.
dual camera interviews at the beginning,
Oh wow!
and by the end
You
it
have
was
a
all
tripod?
selfie videos.
So how much
I did. I
your
had a small tripod.
Geez, so how much did your pack weigh when you set out?
The base weight was about 28 pounds, and that's with all ultralight
Right, the best
materials.
stuff.
So that's with the best stuff.
Yeah, but you probably had a lot of the best stuff, and a lot of it you didn't use, right?
I would say that the camera equipment was the most. I was able to shed some of my personal belongings that I thought I would need to keep me safe. I shed my Kindle.
Yeah.
Just
You have a
read
big
on my
knife?
phone. I actually picked up knives later on in the story.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the big knife is usually the first thing to go, right? And like, I haven't used a knife this whole time.
Well, I used my machete in a blackout to go through brush, actually, so it came in handy.
Okay. So you said 28 pounds base weight, though.
Yes.
Now that is before food and water.
Yes.
So like water is like 8 pounds per gallon or something like that, right? How much water? So 28 pounds sounds manageable, but what was the actual weight when you set out? How much weight were you actually putting on your feet?
So we're looking at approximately 2 pounds of food per day. So if I would try not to carry more than 3 days of food. So we're looking at between 5 and 6 pounds for food.
Okay.
So what does that bring us up to?
5-6 pounds for food, and how much water?
33. And water, same thing. You would check when the next services was, if there's a gas station or a water pump or anything. So I would carry the minimal amount of water needed, which was usually about 3 to 4 liters.
So that's like a gallon.
Yeah, it's about a gallon.
So that's another 8 pounds.
So it's another 8
So realistically, your pack was more like 40 pounds.
That's right.
Not 28.
That's right.
Which is way more depressing in terms of like your knees and your blisters and all that stuff.
And when I left, I did not have high quality shoes. I had been doing this on a budget, and I got shoes from Goodwill.
Yeah.
And they were used, and I lined up shoes to send to myself, all from Goodwill. But they were like nice Nike sneakers, but they weren't trail running shoes, and they were just not made for the pavement.
Yeah.
So it was the pack weight combined with not being as trained as I could have been, combined with that sand to pavement, was really hard on me on the first month.
So yeah, like I know the Appalachian Trail is nice, padded dirt basically. It's the best stuff you could walk on. But then you're going through Delaware and it's like all this pavement. I know that sucks. When did you finally get off pavement onto anything other than like a 2-lane highway? Because I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like it could be any sort of highway. If it's asphalt or concrete, like your body hates you, right?
Yeah.
So when did you actually get off that and get to walk on some dirt, like in the woods, so to speak?
Yeah, I reached the canal. So I think that was in Maryland it started.
This was by Harper's Ferry area?
It was past Harper's Ferry, I believe, or it might have been before Harper's Ferry. I can't remember, but it did go through Harper's Ferry at some point. It only crosses Harper's Ferry very briefly, but I stayed in town for a little while. But the canal was next to the Potomac River.
Okay.
So if you can imagine me walking next to a river which seems really calm, but at any moment could flare up and essentially overflow the walking path.
Interesting.
And on
And
the
there was
other
like warnings
side,
for that along the canal? They'd be like, hey, watch out, the Potomac could rise really fast?
I don't know that there were warnings, but there's erosion. I mean, yeah, there were warnings to not go past a certain point,
right,
where it would generally erode, and to not swim in the Potomac
Yeah, I got a
River.
ticket for that once.
Did you really?
Yeah, it's a famous story. Rich Mayfield has a federal misdemeanor on his record for swimming in that area.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
me and my group of friends, it's a big thing.
You're lucky you came out alive.
We were in a creek, okay? We were in a creek, and we should not have gotten a ticket. But if that ranger's listening, oh man, that dick. He gave us a ticket for swimming in a creek. But no, I just bring that up because I remember, like they say you can't swim there because, the Potomac's so dangerous and all that. Well, we were swimming in a creek, but we still got nicked for it. So I know that it is pretty dangerous.
Yeah, and then I think from a psychological standpoint too, if you're just going for a day walk, so this is where people have to understand the difference between a long trail and a day hike. Psychologically, it's very different because if you're only going for the day, you've basically chosen a day that the weather's pretty good. You've set yourself up for success. Walking along this canal, though, you don't have an exit until a certain number of miles passed.
Right, so you're out there.
So you're just there, and the Potomac's on one side and the canal is on the other side, and the canal's not used anymore.
Wait, so you're walking the bank between the two.
Correct.
And I'm sure, I don't know how fast you don't want to go across either. You don't want to go across the river, you don't want to go across the canal. So you're in the middle for how many miles would it be before you could get out?
It was different every time. It might be a mile, it might be 8 miles.
But you had to plan for that for sure.
But you had to plan. And they had campsites, but because I was there in March, they were technically closed and the water was off. So I had to make sure I had enough water. So
they turned off it must have been pretty cold.
Yeah.
March?
I started in March, so.
Yeah. That is pretty cold in that area, huh?
Yeah.
So that was like the first area where you got off the trail in the canal zone, so to speak. Not the canal zone like Panama.
The first day that I got onto the canal path, I decided to night hike.
Really?
Because I loved it. I was so happy to be off the pavement. I was so thrilled. I was like, this is the adventure.
Yeah.
I just...
Because there's always a car on the pavement or someone can pick you up, but now you're in the middle of nowhere.
It was just a beautiful feeling. The stars were out. I accidentally walked 1.5 miles out of the way. It rained, but I didn't care because I was just so happy. to be there.
So you night hiked for the first time. How was night hiking for the first time?
Well, it wasn't, I had night hiked
yeah.
on the Appalachian Trail, but night hiking for the first time there, I mean, it was a rush. Why are we adventurers, right? We're adventurers because we like the rush.
Yeah.
And that's where it came in for me, was the first time I was alone. My hiking partner had left at that time, and I was a woman with a pack.
Yep.
And the river, and the howls at night, and the railroad.
Huh. So Nemo was gone by that point.
Yes.
So where'd Nemo go?
Harper's Ferry.
And he took off. He banged a right and went up on the Appalachian Trail.
Went back to the Appalachian Trail. Yeah.
Interesting. So you were off on your own, and so this hike that you did have a partner with, now your partner's gone. So how'd that feel?
I was angry. You know, I was really upset because I felt abandoned, and my fears of not being capable arose, you know, from my gut. I said, can I do this? And at the same time, I accepted the challenge because that's the type of person I am. I'm a very stubborn, get it done kind of lady. And I convinced myself, for better or worse, you know, maybe it was coming from a place of ego, but I convinced myself that this would be my chance to prove to myself that I could do it.
So how many days did you think about that for before you kind of got over it? Because I imagine, you know, he made this call that he's going to go off on the Appalachian Trail, right? And did you just take off walking? You're like...
I had no choice but to keep walking.
So you kept walking.
Because I was on a schedule. You know, I knew at that point I still thought I might be hiking 5,000 miles. So I was aiming to hike 20 miles a day. And if you didn't do that, you wouldn't finish in a year. Finishing in a year is important because that's what the Appalachian Trail Conservancy considers a through hike, point to point in a year. So
you just kept your schedule, and while you were doing that, you had to digest all this stuff of your partner leaving you. And you had to go through all this, and this was all just rattling around in your mind. So
That's right.
how many days do you think all that crap was, you know, rattling around up there?
Weeks.
And then after weeks, was there like a point that you remember where you were like, I've come this far. Look at this. I'm good.
Yes. So I actually had to go home because my grandfather was ill, and my entire family tried to convince me to stay home.
That's tough, because after going through those weeks of thinking about all that, and then you had an out.
I had an out, and it was an out that made sense. It was, you know, they were going to help me, and my grandfather was wanting me to be safe, and I was very concerned about him. And they, you know, everyone said, you've hiked 565 miles already. That's fabulous. Not very many people who can say that they've done that. But it wasn't, the itch was still there.
You need 500 more, right?
The itch was still there. I said if I made it to 500 and I felt okay, that I would keep going. So I said that I would go until I couldn't go anymore. And I wasn't going to let myself get to a place where I, you know, I'm pretty self-aware, so if I couldn't go anymore, I had a spot tracker GPS to airlift me out,
right,
if I needed to. So I was that prepared, but I went back.
So you went back and you kept going on, which is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you know, lots of people might have bailed, but you kept going.
Yeah.
So tell me about what happened after Delaware. What does the trail turn into after Delaware?
So I'll rewind and just say before I left, I went through West Virginia. And West Virginia was a great state to get to know people. It was also a very mountainous state.
West Virginia is right after Harper's Ferry, right?
Pretty much. You go through, so Harper's Ferry, then the canal, then West Virginia. And West Virginia is a mountainous state. A lot of people don't realize how mountainous West Virginia is. It was the most mountainous state, because I didn't go through Colorado, but comparatively to Colorado, it's the second most mountainous state. And so I got to be in the forest for the first time. So I had previously been on a rail trail or a canal, but now I was in the forest. And being in the forest was a whole other new adventure for me. And being in the forest, I think I'm really glad that I got to be in the forest before I went home, because being in the forest alone reminded me of why I was doing this. So I had a real reason to come back out and be with the land again.
So it sounds like this trip for you was two things. It was one, to meet people and spread the word, but it was also about you kind of communing with nature in a certain regard. So it sounds like so far you got a good mix of that. So out of West Virginia, what happens after West Virginia?
So after West Virginia is when I went home and came back. So I came back at the border of West Virginia and Ohio.
Okay. I don't know anything about Ohio. What's in Ohio? Sorry for anybody who's watching from Ohio, but
No, a tornado. I was met with a tornado in Ohio, 2 miles away from my
camp.
From my camp. Actually, it was where I had camped the night before the tornado hit, the night after. So that was interesting.
So it literally, the tornado went through the camp that you were in the night before?
Yes.
How'd you find out about that?
The locals. I mean, it was
Oh,
all
man.
over the news.
Isn't that nuts? That's just like right on the edge. Right, one day plus or minus.
One day.
And you would have been in there.
Yep.
Like, what were you doing when you're you're out there in a tent, right? What kind of tent did you have?
I had a single person. I actually went through two different tents. So the first tent that I had was what they call a tarp tent. So
right, you just put the poles.
I used my trekking poles and lay the tarp over it.
Right.
And it actually does not have a floor, but there's a floor attachment. So you can attach like a bathtub floor so that the water doesn't get in. So that's what I started with. It was very heavy duty and great for the thunderstorms that I experienced. I experienced a lot of thunderstorms. And let me tell you, being in a tent in the middle of a gigantic thunderstorm is both wildly exhilarating and freaky as hell.
Yeah, I mean, you're basically rolling the dice at a tree. I mean, I guess that's anywhere, right?
Well, you just don't know. I mean, if you're in a home, a tree might hit your house, but you're not going to die.
Yeah. Or I don't know if it's big enough.
You know?
Maybe it crashes through the wall. I was thinking that Appalachian Trail has a bunch of shelters, right? And that's a little bit more protection. But still, you know, a tree falls on a shelter.
Yeah. The lean-tos aren't super sturdy, but.
So wait, back to the tornado though. So you're in a tent in a tornado, and 2 miles away, this thing is decimating a campsite that you were just in.
Yeah, so actually I was staying with a trail angel when.
Oh, you were?
Yeah, so I was very lucky. I was lucky, but I could see and hear it out the window.
Explain what a trail angel is to everybody.
Yeah. So a trail angel is somebody who gives goodwill along the way. And goodwill can be anything from they stopped and pulled over and gave you some water to they helped you get your strap on your pack fixed, to they let you take a shower or do laundry at their home, to they let you sleep over, they made you dinner, they brought you out to dinner, they got you a hotel. Any sort of goodwill, magic, trail magic we call it, that comes from trail angels. So the angels are the people that help you make it through. I didn't do that. I did it alone and I did it unsupported, but I was never alone or unsupported.
So one of these people, a trail angel that you met, was putting you up in their house that night.
Yeah, we actually had seen a rainbow earlier in the day. We were like, double rainbow. And then that
you
night.
It and
right?
Went viral.
Double rainbow remix. That night, the lights went out. And I woke up, and I'm in a stranger's home, so it's different when the lights go out in your own home.
Yeah, sure.
I'm in a stranger's home, and the lights go out, and I open my eyes, and the window right next to me, like Dorothy in a movie, you know, the window is just like flashes of lightning. And so, you know, we didn't have any information that night because the electricity was out, but the next morning we found out exactly where it hit, which was Laurelville, Ohio, which was 2 miles from where I was. Now, the reason why it was only 2 miles from where I was because I had actually walked 20 miles that day, approximately 18 or 19, ended up at a bar restaurant where I met the trail angel who brought me back to his house. So I was only 2 miles away. I didn't only walk 2 miles. I walked 18 miles, but I was close to where it was.
So now from Ohio, like I'm imagining just from Ohio to stop me where it's not just flat America.
Yeah, so Ohio, Kentucky was rather boring. I saw a lot of horses. And then I went into Indiana. And Indiana...
But am I right to assume that there's this big, long stretch of basically flat middle America that we try to go through? Like when I do a cross-country drive, I try to hit like nice 90 on cruise control so you don't get pulled over.
Yeah, I don't know that you're there yet. I think flat middle America is more Oklahoma, Kansas.
Okay.
Oklahoma is pretty flat. This was, kind of back to residential areas. So it's more similar to the East Coast. Going through Ohio was like going through New Jersey.
Lots of trees.
Trees and
where are you camping?
went through a state park that had beautiful waterfalls, caves.
Caves?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. There's a lot of like cave structures there.
Mm-hmm.
Did you visit any of those?
Hocking Hills State Park in Ohio was one of my favorite places. These were not underground caves. These were actually caves that are above ground and have waterfalls like coming from them or coming out like, hot springs.
So you can just kind of walk straight into them. You're not walking down into them.
Right. You're walking through them like it looked like a magical fairyland.
It's like an avatar.
It was so crazy.
Like super green and lush.
Yes. Yeah, you would expect to see Adam and Eve sunbathing,
Yeah.
like that kind of thing, except it's a public park and there are people just kind of hiking.
It's Ohio, so that wouldn't be appropriate. So that's really cool. So that's a state park in Ohio.
Yes.
And if anybody's going through Ohio, they need to visit those.
Hocking Hills State Park, Ash Cave, and the other caves.
Any cool stories in those caves?
No, but I have a story in a cave that we should get to when we get to Arkansas.
Okay. Well, that's the next state, right?
So actually, in Indiana, another big thing happened. I met someone else who was hiking across America. His name was Jeremy, and he was hiking for anti-bullying, and we decided to hike together for...
So you just meet these, because you're on the American Discovery Trail at this point, right?
I actually had gotten off of the Discovery Trail when I went into Ohio.
So when you went into Ohio... what route did you take at that point?
The big turning point was when I went home and decided to come back. So I went home, I processed everything. I decided I needed to change up my game plan if I was going to keep going.
Because it was 5,000 miles, right?
It's 5,000 miles. I said, 5,000 miles, I'll do one day. Right. But this time around, I'm just going to go coast to coast. And I think that's still a big achievement. I think that's an admirable goal. I think it's still a big achievement. Yeah. So I don't feel guilty about it. I really don't.
So you redid your route. How'd you redo your route?
I got to shout out my friend Aaron, the man behind the curtain. He actually worked with me to develop a Google Maps route that we then converted into a hiker's map that works with the hiker's app, Gaia. So it worked with the same app that I was using for the American Discovery Trail. And this app is great because it puts me on a gold dot and has a red line of where I'm supposed to go. And if I'm facing the wrong direction, it tells me I'm facing the wrong direction. Gaia GPS. Gaia GPS. Gaia GPS.
Huh.
So I had to put him to work, my friend Aaron. I said...
And because you were still hiking.
I was walking.
Knew that you wanted to change your route.
And I said, listen.
Like, Aaron, I need support. Like, find me a new route.
I said, please find me a new route. He found me a new route. I said, okay, now make sure this new route detours into at least 2 cool things per state. You can surprise me with what they are.
Okay. So the requirements are 2 cool things per state.
Yep.
And I really don't care what they are, but you got to at least give me 2 cool things.
And services, I said no more than 3 days without services.
Okay.
If you can.
So he got on the computer and he got on Google Maps and just figured it out.
Went to town. And then I put him to work again. I said, it's not good enough in Google Maps. I need you to learn how to transcribe it into GPX format.
So he had to...
He loves these kind of challenges that I give him. So
I do remember that.
Up to the plate.
GPX, there is like a converter that you can go from KML to GPX. and it's kind of a pain in the butt, but I know you can do it.
Yeah, and he did it for me, and he gave me, and the reason I knew this existed was because the American Discovery Trail had these guidebooks in GPX format.
Right.
So I knew that it was possible to do, and when I know something's possible, or even when it seems impossible, I know that there's usually a solution.
That's what Google's for. Google will tell you how to take their format and translate it into that GPX format.
Yeah, and he did it, and it worked beautifully. I was able to click on what we call a waypoint. A waypoint is the next.
I don't know if we need to air quote waypoints.
Spot. Well, I think that there are a lot of people who don't know. Maybe your audience knows.
This audience is familiar with waypoints, and I'm pretty sure our audience here is really excited about Gaia GPS, right? And the fact that they can, there's probably people out there downloading that app right now.
Well, to my new Adventure Club fans, thank you for tuning in. And I just want to make sure that anyone who watches that might not know what a waypoint is understands that a waypoint is somewhere you can stop along the trail.
Right.
And so like for my purposes, get food and services.
For other lay people, like it's like a point of interest or, you know, like a starred place on Google Maps. That's where you're going.
Yes, that's where
So
I'm
you've
going.
got this new route lined out by Aaron.
Yep.
So you gave your shout out to Aaron. Thanks,
Yes.
Aaron. Good job. So he laid out this route across the United States that wasn't the American Discovery Trail. And now you're on that. And where were we? Arkansas?
We were in Indiana. when I meet up with a new friend.
Right.
Jeremy.
So you just meet people, like, again, I can see, you know, when you're on the Appalachian Trail or the Pacific Crest Trail or whatever, you're going to meet people every day that are doing the exact same thing. But at this point, you are not on any trail. You're on the Aaron Trail. You're on the Aaron cross country, Aaron's American Discovery Trail, right? The AADT. And you meet someone else that's doing the exact same thing. Like who's this?
What
person?
are the chances, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is pretty astonishing that you'd meet someone on your new route.
Yes.
That's doing the same thing.
So I had already at this point met up with Mike Posner, who was walking across America, but was not on my route. I went out of my way off my route to meet him.
You saw him on social media? And
actually, some other people saw him on social media and convinced me that I had to go find him. So it was a little bit of a controversy. But Jeremy found me, saw me on social media, and was like, I'm only 90 miles away from you.
And
okay.
Everybody's going west.
Most people are going west. So just because that's how the seasons work best. And he wasn't sure if he was going to wait, but then his camp got flooded. The universe just lined up where, you know, I ended up catching up to him, and we were in the same major city. I don't remember exactly what city it was, but we decided let's try it out. A hiking partner is like a partner, you know, it's pretty intimate.
Yeah.
So if you don't get along, it's not going to work.
How long were you on your own at this point in terms of like walking 20 miles a day?
Probably another 500 miles or more, 700 miles.
So did you develop a lot of characters to talk to yourself in your head?
You know, that's a great excuse for all my characters, but I had a lot of characters before the walk.
Right.
So they just evolved and developed their own accents.
Right. Did you pick those from walking across the United States? You found accents?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, I developed personas walking across America. That is very true.
I mean, if you're not walking with anybody, you're going to talk to yourself, right? I mean, who else are you going to talk to, right? If you had a dog, I guess.
Yeah.
But so you found a new hiking partner. How long did you hike with him for?
2 months.
Wow. So that was from Arkansas.
That was through Indiana.
I'm awful with Midwest geography.
Indiana, a little bit, half of Missouri, and quite a bit of Arkansas.
Okay. So how was that?
You know, we got along really well. We didn't always walk next to each other. He would walk and I would walk. And we'd like look at each other to make sure neither of us got hit by a car.
And you're basically kind of like have the same goal at the end of each day.
Yeah, we'd try to meet up in town at the end of each day.
Right.
Sometimes I'd be hours ahead or behind him.
Yeah.
And then we'd share a hotel or we'd camp. You know, we'd find where to camp together. And it was great. It honestly, Jeremy and I had the best time together. People loved watching our live streams. We made friends together. We were like butt buddies. You know, trail angels would be like, find one of us. They'd find one of us and say, oh, what's it gonna? Oh, we tell the story, and then we each say, oh, by the way, someone else is coming too. You have to house two of us, two smelly hikers.
Right.
So it was really fun. I love Jeremy dearly. And just to share one story of our 2-month time together, we went through Missouri during the flooding in Missouri, and a lot of the bridges were closed. And we weren't sure if we were going to be able to get through Indiana into Missouri or Illinois into Missouri. I can't remember which one borders
closed,
Missouri.
what does that mean? I know they can put up barriers and a car can't go, but you're just walking. So what does that look like?
No, they had, I'm pretty sure they had police cars there.
So it was like closed.
It was closed.
Just because it was flooded out and you wouldn't want to try
flooded.
to cross it.
Yeah, so we walked as far as we possibly could. To be fair, he walked the extra 1 mile all the way to the police barricades.
Yeah.
I said, there's a car that just told us that the police barricades are turning everyone around.
Right.
So I took a hitch from just over the border beneath, like near Arkansas.
Right.
Where it was open. And so the kind of rules are like, if you cannot pass by foot, like obviously you have to pass some way.
Right.
So
you hitchhike around to the other side of the barricade and you keep going.
Exactly.
Right.
So we got into Missouri, and that night the flooding had caused so many flies, these tiny little, what they call no-see-ums. Mm-hmm. They're smaller than gnats.
But they bite you, right?
But they bite, and they can get into your bug net because they're so small that not even the bug net can keep them out. And
now, you had a proper tent at this point. You didn't have that tarp.
No, I still had the tarp tent.
So that didn't have any fly protection anyway.
Well, I had a bug net inside of it.
Okay. Because they have no-see-um bug netting, right?
Probably.
It's like super tiny.
I didn't even know what a no-see-um was at the time. So
then you became intimately familiar as they started
very
tearing you
intimately
apart.
familiar.
Yeah.
I yelled at the top of my lungs at all the no-see-ums. So we're camping in this park, and it's 10 p.m. and we're trying to get our things set up, and I'm like, I'm like smacking myself like a crazy person, just like And Jeremy is laying on a picnic table, like in his bug net or in his tent or whatever. And I try to set up my tent and my zipper breaks. And I'm like, now I don't even have a little bit of protection.
Right.
So I just start yelling, and I'm like, I gotta go to a hotel. I'm gonna walk. I don't care how far the hotel is. I'm walking until I find the hotel. And
right.
Jeremy's like, calm down. I will come with you. Like, you don't have to go by yourself. So we walked through the night, 33 miles through the night.
But at least you didn't get eaten.
But we weren't getting eaten while we were walking.
And you're 33 miles further along?
Yeah, it was actually, we were so tired the next day, but we ended up at a 24-hour diner when we arrived in the next town, just like conking out. I fell asleep actually outside the diner on the ground.
Nice.
It was like embarrassing, but that's the level of exhaustion you face when you are up against the elements.
So what is your stance on 100% DEET? The stuff in the orange bottle that probably causes cancer.
I didn't use it once during the entire trip.
Now, if I had a bottle of DEET that night at that campsite, would you have used that DEET? It works. It's not good for you. I don't think it's good for anybody, but it definitely, it would have kept those no-see-ums away. Like that's like that.
I would never judge anyone for using it.
Especially at that time, right?
Yeah, but I've just come to, and I've used bug spray in the past, but I've just come to a place where I don't really want that kind of chemical on my body. So my reality was I came up with a solution, and my solution was to walk. Mm-hmm. Was to keep walking. So
if you walk fast enough, they can't catch you, right?
I was walking at a normal pace, and they weren't bothering me while I was walking.
That is a moral dilemma, though, right? Nobody wants to use DEET, but it sure is effective.
The alternatives that I found to be pretty effective.
Yeah. What do you use for
they're more expensive, though. That's the issue.
There's alternatives to DEET that work as well?
There's definitely alternative bug sprays and things. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. All right. So so every once in a while you'd hit a hotel because you had to, like, it's nice if a trail angel comes by or something, but sometimes you just have to get out, right? You have to get a shower and, not be assaulted by insects and everything.
Yeah.
So after this was a Missouri flood, right?
Yeah.
Where were you off to next?
So we did get a hotel that day and slept all through the day. And then we were off to Garden of the Gods, our next big
Like Colorado?
stop.
Garden of the
There's
Gods?
actually one in Arkansas
Okay.
or Missouri. I think it's on the border of Missouri and Arkansas.
And this was a national park or a state park, or?
I don't remember which, but
So yeah, where, outside of a hotel, like on this route, where are you camping? Like if you're not in a national park, you're kind of like in between. There's not a continuous trail.
yeah. So the go-to locations for camping, just so everyone knows, is city parks or local, community parks.
And they don't run you out of there like a homeless person?
Not usually. I didn't get bugged that much, but if I did get bugged and I told them what I was doing, they were more interested in my story than they were in kicking me out. Yeah.
Along.
But I also camped a lot outside of libraries and churches.
They don't bother you, huh?
Well, no one's there at the library.
That's a good point.
And it's a great place to. I would camp outside the library, wake up, check my emails, and then keep walking. I was running my company as I walked, so the reason it took me so long was because I was stopping at libraries a lot to do work, to answer emails.
Yeah, and you were live streaming a lot. Like I want to bring some of these in. Andy, can you pull up a video? I was looking at this page and almost
I'm halfway through the San
every
Bernardino
day
forest.
you're putting something out
I
there,
actually
right?
did put something out every single day.
Yeah. Do you know where this one is that he's showing?
This one's farther along in the journey, but
Let's back it up, Andy. Let's get something that's contemporary to what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you scroll, I can sort of tell you where we're at, but it's going to be, this is all kind of Arizona, so you got to keep going back quite a bit.
Scroll. So this is an amazing amount of content, and you're streaming.
Oh, wait.
You did something every day.
I don't know.
Or
Somehow
we passed it already?
Yeah. Somehow. What platform is this on? Facebook?
Yeah. Let's click that one by a train track right there. That looks interesting. Yeah.
Oh, but that's not for my walk.
This isn't from your walk?
No.
You have a backpack on.
I know.
Well, no, I was just trying to
vessel.
bring up the point that, when you're hiking and you're camping in front of a library or in a city park or something like that, you don't look much different from a homeless person, do you?
No, I certainly don't look like this. That's for sure.
Yeah, you're not put together. You got a backpack,
And I don't smell much different either.
and you don't. And you probably exploding your gear all over the place, right? And so if someone comes by, they're probably like, "Look at that homeless lady over there," which
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing in terms of starting conversations.
So I think that what I will say is that because my gear was so high quality, it looked expensive.
Right.
So when I was walking, I looked less of a homeless person. And when I was setting up my tent, if you saw my tent, not everybody has a backpacking tent, like a single person backpacking tent. It's
and
not
like a Osprey backpack or whatever.
You can kind of tell. So also oftentimes, even if I was camping, I had already talked to people in town. Mm-hmm. So the police department maybe have already, you'd be surprised how quickly word spreads.
Right.
Someone's in our tiny town and they want to camp.
Did you get local publicity, from local newspapers and stuff about what you were doing?
I did, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. So when you come into town, they were like, "Oh yeah, I want to interview you."
They were like, "Jenny Meeple's walking across America."
When did
they didn't want me to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you had to stay on the schedule, right?
I was trying, but
I
stayed. There were a couple places I stayed 4 days, 5 days.
Because you had such good hospitality in the town and everything like that. That's pretty cool. Yeah. So where are we in terms of the United States?
Okay,
here?
so we passed Missouri. We're into Arkansas now, and Arkansas was one of my favorite states. Beautiful water. So I noticed, just going back to the We Are Mother Earth, kind of what am I learning about our country, the landscape of our country, is that the water supply is dirty. It's just really dirty in a lot of places. And Arkansas was the first place where there were natural springs with spring water, with drinkable spring water in the parks.
Like everywhere. I mean, shoot, like there's, in LA, there's probably like 4 or 5 natural springs. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, definitely more than I had seen in any other state, And you might not be drinking out of it daily, but it's drinkable, it's potable, and beautiful to swim in. So those two things made me my heart just exploded, and I just said, oh my God, I've been missing this,
There's nothing like going from like the dirty city to just like pure nature where there's no...
And it was summertime at this point, so you might like this. So we went to Garden of the Gods, which was a beautiful mountain kind of forest, and then we went through Arkansas, and we stopped in one of the rivers where they do a lot of water rafting. This is a big water activity.
Like get a case of beer and sit in the inner tube and float.
So me and Jeremy did just that. We got a cooler tube, and we had our tubes, and he had some beer, I had some wine, and we went floating down the river. And
that got you towards your destination?
And that got us a couple miles, farther. But it was just a really fun way to celebrate. And then later on in the day, some of our trail angels that we met came, and there was just like hundreds of people floating on the river playing music, like a big barbecue. So I got to have some great community experiences. They cooked for us. We sat on the river. It was gorgeous. And then, we did that for 2 days, and then we kept going. So now we're, Western Arkansas. And that's when I lose Jeremy, because I had shipped myself a new sleeping pad. My sleeping pad broke. It got a hole in it. And I couldn't patch it up. It was just not repairable. So I ordered a new sleeping pad, and it just never came. And I kept waiting in the city, and I wasted days. And Jeremy went on, and I said, I'll catch up to you. And then I never did. And then I got an ulcer in my eye.
Wow.
And I had to take a week off because
he's gone.
He's gone.
And he just kept hiking on?
And he kept hiking on. We didn't have the same destination, so we knew we were going to break off at some point.
Right, but this was on it.
It was a little earlier than we had hoped or expected, but that's just what happened. And then I got an ulcer in my eye, and I had to, I stayed with a lovely family in Arkansas who put me up for over a week while my ulcer started to heal. And then I started walking with an eye patch.
Do we have a video of that? Can you please find a video of that, Andy? Come on. We'll keep talking. So you got an eye patch.
All my daily videos are on Instagram and on Facebook.
There's like a ton on Facebook here. I don't know.
Well, you're close. If you pull up where you are right now, you're close to the eye patch because I have blue hair there.
So you got out of Arkansas with blue hair.
You're going to go too far. The eye patch is farther down. But
see what you can do while we keep talking. But I'd love to see a video of that eye patch. That'd be cool to see.
I don't know if there's one on Facebook. But not only did I have an eye patch, but I had blue hair.
Blue hair and an eye patch.
I had bright blue hair and an eye patch.
Here's this Jenny Blue, the pirate, walking out of Arkansas.
Yeah.
So
it was very funny.
Again, my geography is painfully inadequate when it comes to the Midwest. I don't know. But I just keep thinking that we're going to get to this big flat land that you're going to have to
coming. We're
across.
almost there.
We're almost there.
Take a breath.
Okay.
We're almost to the flatland.
Arkansas is still nice.
Yes.
All this area from Delaware to Arkansas is still nice. And then what happens after Arkansas?
I got to tell you the Arkansas cave story, please.
Okay, so
I get into town one day, and a gentleman drives by and says that he'll buy me dinner. He checks if I'm okay, says he'll buy me dinner.
You get that a lot? Sounds like kind of a random pickup.
I do get it a lot. I got it a lot. So, you're always feeling out the person. And so I got in the car with him. He got me some Subway for dinner and then asked if I needed a place to stay. I said I could stay at his house. And I had already had a place lined up, but it was like a campsite and it wasn't going to have electricity or anything. So I said yes to staying with him at his house. It wasn't until we were already on the way to his house that he said, oh, by the way, my house isn't finished being built yet. And And I'm like, okay. So now I'm starting to get a little like, you know?
Does he
Like, what
live
does
in a
that
cave?
mean? What does that
Is that
mean?
where we're going? Are we going to a cave? Does this guy live in a cave?
So we arrive at where he lives, but there is no mailbox, no driveway, and no house.
And banjo music playing in the background in the distance over the hills.
Maybe more like horror film music. So it's about sundown, and I'm looking around and going, and then I look at my phone because I want to text Aaron and tell him like I'm off course, you know.
Should have gotten that spot out.
Well, I was like, I don't have any service. And so I looked at my spot and I said, is it dangerous enough for me to, you know, it's not dangerous. Nothing happened.
Yeah.
So he's like, come on. And he's pretending like everything's fine. Come on, let's go. Let me show you my house. And I'm like, where's your house? So he leads me down into the woods.
Hey guys. I found it.
Okay, let's see the eye patch. So,
yeah.
So this story is happening with an eye patch on, yes or no?
This is right after the eye patch.
Oh, so you got the eye patch off. There it is.
That's it. He found it.
I have so many things to tell you guys, and I
Their
don't know
volume?
exactly where to stop.
I think the audience can hear
No,
with the
not
most
only
obvious,
not only do I have an eye patch, but I have
I look like
glasses over
crazy
the eye patch.
Yeah, that's a good look.
Seriously. I look like a
A
crazy
monocle would be
person.
appropriate
But, you know,
at that point.
there's those memes that circulate that say
It's a rather long.
crazy ones
it's
are
a
the
rather
ones that
long
change
clip,
the
but
world.
I think you
I'm who
sort
they're
of get the
talking
idea, of the type of stigma I might be facing out on the mainland, if you will.
Yeah.
You know.
So, okay, I guess you're regretting your decision to follow this guy to his cave house. I'm making that assumption that it's a cave. You're checking your spot. I don't know, like, you know how they have different buttons? There's one with the button, like, one's okay. Did you have, like, a custom message set up on that spot that was,
I
like,
should have, but I never,
creepy...
never did. About to go to a creepy man's cave.
Yeah, if I don't check in the morning, like, come and get me.
Yeah, you would think that I would have prepared myself for that. But we get farther into the woods, and then all of a sudden I hear about 8 dogs, like hunting dogs, growling at me.
Oh, he's got dogs, too.
And I look, and there are like a bunch of dogs in a cage growling at me, and I'm rather concerned because it's just I'm like, are these for my dead body after? You know, like I don't know what they're for, but I continue to follow him into the woods, and lo and behold, he is building like a permaculture home in the middle of the woods, and it's just 2x4s. There's no windows, there's no paint, there's no walls, it's not enclosed.
And have you talked to him about what your deal is on this hike yet?
Sort of. And so he, you know, we start talking, and he's a cool guy. Like I am interested in what he's doing and his vision and his design for the home. Like ultimately it could be really cool. It's an off-grid home. And at the same time, I'm like, I'm still a woman alone with this man I don't know in the middle of the night with no food or water and no way to call anyone. Right? And then he's like, and then after all of it, after my anxiety is building and building and building, he goes, you got to come to the cave.
So yeah, like the ice has not been broken. It's like, okay, I'm safe. It's just like, this is ramping up. Yep.
You got to come to the cave. 9 p.m. he tells me
at
this.
This point in the horror movie say, oh, she need to run the other way. But you're not yet.
My entire family was like, what? You stayed
So
with
in
him?
reality, like what I'm learning is that these horror movies are actually pretty accurate, right? The girl does get in the car, does go to the house with no address. She does walk into the woods.
Oh my goodness
and then she
gracious.
does actually go to the cave.
But there was, okay, so yes.
Okay, but you're here, so like I know
those
how
things
this
are
ends.
true. Those things are true. And also, I was prepared for this type of adventure.
Nice.
So I would not recommend young women traveling alone, getting in cars with people that they don't know.
Why would you say
know?
that you're prepared?
Mentally, I understand how to read people. I have honed my intuition. It's a skill that can be developed. I was also prepared with mace.
Good stuff.
I don't think I had a knife at that point, but I also did have my spot tracker in case.
Right.
So I did have some precautions.
But to play devil's advocate, you know, predatory guys are also good at making sure people do not read them. That's their deal, right? That's how they get people to trust them. Anyway,
I think that's true.
I don't want to question your decisions because your decisions obviously worked out for you in this case.
Yeah.
Right. And
So
you
what
made it
happened
out.
is you know, at the point where he said, "You got to come see this cave," I responded, "Are you kidnapping me?" Like, I was dead serious. I looked him in the eyes and said, "Are you going to rape me? Like, is that what's happening right now?"
And it was like,
And that's when he, you know, he did get like a little defensive and was like, "No, I'm not
he's
like
"Oh,
that,"
yeah,
you
we're in
know?
the woods. I invited you to my cave.
Yeah, you know, it was right. Like,
My mom
oh,
told
this
me
might
that
be.
no women would ever come back here.
Yeah, and so he, you know, he did the moment of reflection of like, oh, this might not feel safe for her, and then like 2 minutes later was like, so are you gonna come see the cave? You know, and so I'm like, oh, can we see it in the morning? Can we see it in the? Why do we have to go now? And he's like, I work at 4 o'clock at the railroad. We got to see it now. So I say yes to going to see the cave. He takes me 2 miles deeper into the woods, no path, no trail, and my headlamp goes out. Thank God I have my phone, so I'm still like filming and doing, and I have this all on video actually. Lo and behold, when we got there, what was there?
A cave?
A 40-foot tall cave with multiple rooms with quartz crystal.
Oh, cool.
Gigantic, I mean, like quartz crystal going from ceiling to floor, sparkling.
Did he have it all lit up or what? Like,
No, it was lit up by the crystals.
oh wow.
It was, I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I looked like I was, and it wasn't diamonds, but it like,
Right.
I felt like I was in.
But they're huge.
Yeah, huge. I felt like I was in the Goonies, you know?
Yeah.
I'm sure your adventurers have watched the Goonies.
Yeah.
So I felt like I was like, the treasure! It's here. I found it. And then you know what I did? I touched it, and then I was like, oh, I'm not supposed to touch it because the oils in your fingers can destroy the.
Well, I don't
the
think
crystals.
a quartz crystal. I don't know.
I don't
I
know.
know stalactites and stuff because they're still forming, so the
Yeah.
oil mess them up. But I think quartz crystals, they are
Well,
what
these
they
were
are.
quartz crystal stalactites and
Oh,
stalagmites.
that's crazy.
Yeah, it was insane. So I have pictures of that. Anyone who wants to see is welcome to, you know, follow me and I can, you know, share pictures of it.
So you
But
made it out of there all right.
I made it out all right. And that I just had to tell you that cave story because
Yeah.
how many people get to see an abandoned, it's not up and running for tourism,
Right.
right? But it is this natural wonder. I saw a natural wonder because I listened to my gut and I knew that there was some level of danger, but I could mitigate it with my, you know, personal interaction skills. So not what I would recommend for all young women traveling alone, but I am glad that I made that decision.
Right. Well, that's cool. I mean, you know, when you're on a trip like this, right? That's the type of stuff that you have to go for, right? Because the whole point is you're opening yourself up to experiences. So you see these things out there, and like nobody is ever going to see that. I mean, there may be 20 or 30 people in America that ever see that cave, and you got to see it because you were there and you were willing to say yes, and you know, it turned out that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So
So-
I think that's a part of the story is to say yes. Adventurers say yes.
That is true.
You know?
Yeah, down for anything,
Yeah.
right? So after this guy took off for work at like 4 a.m. and he was just like, hey, lock the cave up and go. What was the deal?
I slept in his car.
Okay.
I didn't go back. I was like, after the cave, I said, you better get me out of these woods right now. I've seen enough.
So you slept, you know, we had another guy that was saying, one of our members, Rob Quist, he hiked around Europe and he was talking, and we were like, where did you sleep? He's like, oh, abandoned cars. Like, what are abandoned cars? But I guess that's how he traveled around. So you slept in this guy's car, he dropped you off in the morning, right?
And now we get to your favorite part. The flatlands
great
of
flatlands.
Oklahoma.
So I'm interested because I want to know like how you walk across that. Is it just like 300 miles of like flatness in front of you where you're just like, oh shit, like there it is.
That's exactly what it's like.
And you just like walk down the road. I imagine you're on a road because there's not a footpath through the cornfield, right?
Sometimes there is actually.
Okay.
Sometimes the tractors have left pathways, and sometimes where they're inputting any kind of electrical or oil rigs, Google Maps will even pick up tiny paths.
So what's the longest stretch that you had with no services or anything?
About 4 days.
4 days.
I would say probably 3.5 with, services at the end of the the fourth day.
Wow. So just flatness.
Yeah.
How was that? Like what was going through your head?
It was lonely. It was very, very lonely. I texted a lot of ex-boyfriends.
So you just stop in the middle of a cornfield, plop down.
I answered a lot of existential questions in my head, but I was dealing with wildlife. This is when I started to deal with wildlife a lot.
What do you mean deal with them? It sounds like they were a problem.
Yeah, well, earlier on in the trip, so I ran into my first coyotes in West Virginia, and I thought they were wolves. They might have been wolves, but I think they were coyotes, and I was scared. I mean, I had left my food bag inside my tent. It was a thunderstorm. The coyotes were closing in on me, one howling from this direction. I thought, oh, it'll go away. And then the other one howling, and I thought, oh my God, they're talking to each other. They know I'm here. And the howls are getting closer and closer, and I'm in my tent like this. And I'm like, what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Because this is my first experience with the animals, right? And I'm like,
So what
throw
was
your
your
food
plan?
bag. So I opened my tent. I tossed my food bag as far as it would go. And I pulled down my pants and peed in a circle around my tent. And it worked.
It did?
It worked.
They didn't think that you were some animal that like...
Oh, and I shone my light. The light is very important. I turned on my headlamp and I went like this.
Yeah, and they got out of there.
And then they left. So now
And
I'm
they
in
didn't eat your food
Oklahoma.
bag.
And they
your
did not
food.
eat my food bag.
Well,
so
that's good.
I got into Oklahoma, and now it's real, like it's summertime. Okay, so the snakes are out. I
What
saw
kind
them.
of snakes do they have in Oklahoma?
Rattlesnakes, but
The kind that bite you and kill you?
I mean, I'm not a snake expert, but I definitely saw several different kinds of snakes. I have videos of snakes. And so here's the fun part psychologically, right? You're like, is that a snake or is it a tire? Because you're walking on roads and people's edges of their tires
Right.
are coming off all over the road. And you like anything in front of you is a potential snake. So I would joke with my Instagram followers anytime I saw a tire snake. I would take a video from a distance and say, is it a real snake or a tire snake?
Well, I've read that psychologically our brains are, because snakes are danger, right? That our brains are tuned in to basically pick up that shape, like do pattern recognition in our heads. And so when you see that snake shape, your brain cues in on it. Even if it's not a snake, it's that shape, and your brain's like, oh, danger. So I can imagine as you're baking in the midday sun, right? Because
Baking.
Yeah.
So the whole thing about the flatlands in Oklahoma, baking. I was baking in the sun. I was so tan and so red and so sweaty. I mean, I should have been in some kind of ad, like just
Right.
for like, the sweat was just dropping off of me. I was going through like liters and liters and liters of water per day. I don't know, 6, 7, 8 liters of water per day.
And were you carrying all that, or was there water resupply?
I was able to get water resupply. A lot of people stopped and gave me water on the road.
That's good.
Yeah.
So that like I just think about what's that book, Waiting for Godot?
I don't know, but
You've never. I think you read it in high school. Waiting for Godot is basically this existential novel where these two people are sitting in this wasteland. There's just nothing as far as the eye can see, and I just imagine that what it's like. It sucks driving across it, so I can't even imagine walking.
well, that was everyone said, but we don't even drive this. They were like so confused. They would look at me like I was a sad girl. They were like, but honey, like, we don't even drive this.
Yeah.
You're not going to walk this alone.
But you made it through, right?
And I was like, actually, I am.
So I mean, yeah, you made it. You made it
I
across.
did.
It must have sucked. I can only imagine.
I did.
And what was the first? how did that transition into like? Does it go back to woodlands or what? Like,
So
what
then-
does it go into? Does it go
well,
to desert?
So then I took a big old break. I took a break actually before the real serious plains. Halfway in, I took a break. I had to go back to New York to handle some business, and then I came back, did the plains through the hot summer, all of August and September, and then so it was about around September 20th of 2019, I crossed over from the tip of Oklahoma, the western portion of Oklahoma, down into Texas, because now all of a sudden, even though it was just hot summer, walking through all that, now it is going to be too cold, because now we're entering October. And so I have to go farther south to maintain the warmth. So it was like hot desert, hot desert, hot desert. And then all of a sudden, like I dipped down into Texas, and the Texas panhandle was like a week later, there was a snowstorm. It was crazy.
So you had to like totally change out your gear and everything.
Yeah. And I was very lucky that I met a trail angel who did that for me.
So at this point, you're like 2/3 across the United States. Have you done like a shakedown on your gear yet?
I had done it in Ohio, and I did it again during my halfway point when I went home. So the shakedown for me would happen continuously. I was constantly shipping things home.
Right.
Because trail angels would give me gifts. I mean, I got
Like gear?
I got bottles of wine. I got jams. I got necklaces. I got pendants.
Did you ever, because I mean, if someone gave me a bottle of wine, I would probably just chug it and hand it back to them. Thank you. They look at you like
Yeah.
you're crazy. But it's heavy, right?
It's very heavy. I sent a lot of it home. I got a hand painted rancher's vest.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful.
This was in Texas?
That was in Texas, I believe. And I wanted to wear it, but I couldn't. So I wore a lot of the necklaces, and then when it got too many, I was wearing like 5 necklaces at one point, because I wanted my followers to know like how much their gifts meant to me.
Right.
So I wore the pendants for good energy, and then I sent them home at some point when I did a shakedown. So, yeah, I would say periodically every 2 or 3 weeks I was doing a shakedown.
So then, so you got to Texas, or you dipped down into Texas, and the snowstorm. Did you have like the proper gear to weather that, or what? Or did you have to make a
So
call?
I met a trail angel who had gotten me some winter stuff, and he had a home in Texas and a home in New Mexico, actually. So he really, this is a shout out to Bill and Melanie, but Bill Walker, interestingly, his last name was Walker. And we just,
Texas Ranger.
yeah, right. Something like that.
Chuck Norris helped you out on your
Yeah, so he just really made sure that I had some gear to get me through the snowstorm. And then when I got to New Mexico, he gave me more winter gear, like Hiker Christmas. Gave me all the winter gear I could possibly need. So between Texas and New Mexico, I was a little underprepared, but because I was moving south, it wasn't as bad.
Yeah.
So I got lucky with the weather.
So you're in the home stretch now that you're kind of coming down. Things are cooling off, and I'm sure like California and all these states are beautiful in the winter. So you're coming into New Mexico in October?
November.
November.
Yeah.
So your hike's kind of coming to an end, because you started in
March, and I ended in March. I
March
walked
to
for
March.
exactly a year,
Okay.
or
So-
I trekked for exactly a year.
So you came down into New Mexico. I mean, that area is beautiful. How did what were your highlights there? What did you pick up in turn? Did you only got 2 things in New Mexico, or did he give you a couple other cool things to
So
see?
Roswell was one of them, the town that's known for like all the alien stuff.
Right.
And then, New Mexico was very scenic. So I went through Ruidoso, and Southern New Mexico is different than northern New Mexico, as I was actually speaking with my friend Tim about. Southern New Mexico is, I don't know, there's some tourist areas, but there's also a lot of farmland. It's not Santa Fe, it's not Albuquerque. They're not really these big cities. So
It's not a giant turquoise factory.
No. And there's a small community colleges and things like that. So it was up and over a lot of hills. It was farmland, then hills, then desert in New Mexico. Farmland, hills, desert in that order, essentially. And it was the peacefulness of Oklahoma, but with a lot more scenery. So beautiful mountains. I mean, and I just love the mountains. I love the scenery. I love the sunsets. So, I mean, to experience the New Mexico sunsets and the Arizona sunsets every day, it was just such a blessing.
Did you do a lot of night hiking through those areas, or?
I would call it dusk hiking. Like, I loved hiking right into the night and setting up my tent just at the, the break where twilight was now turning to black. I didn't like to be hiking in the black unless I needed to.
Right.
But I did like hiking in twilight.
Because I would imagine, that's something that we didn't talk about, but when you're in the forest, right, and it's the beginning part of your hike through Missouri and all that, you don't get to see a lot of stars, right? And you mentioned lots of thunderstorms and everything like that. But I can imagine that through those flatlands, when you're baking in the sun and through those desert areas, being up at night might be pretty cool.
Yeah, I have a quick, super brief story about that, actually. And it ties into, you were asking me, where do you camp, right? So I was walking through Oklahoma. I'm pretty sure it was Oklahoma. It might have been the end of Arkansas. But I was walking through a small town, and I wasn't going to make it to the park. It was like 3 more miles to the park, and it was off my route. And I was tired, and I just, I saw a U-Haul center. And I thought, At first I thought maybe I can just camp behind one of the U-Hauls or behind the center. Like, there's probably a grassy knoll I can camp on. But there wasn't. It was all concrete. And this is where I switched tents, because Arkansas and getting into Oklahoma, getting into the flatlands, I realized there's no soil. It's not West Virginia. It's not Missouri. There's no farmland, really. It's all, if there's grass growing, it's all concrete underneath, or gravel underneath, or some kind of stone. And my tent required stakes. So what are you to do if you can't stake your tent into the ground?
So you needed one that had some poles that was
I needed a freestanding tent.
Yeah.
So this was before I got the freestanding tent. I was like, I had to get creative.
You tie off to a U-Haul?
So actually there was like a U-Haul bed, so not a truck, not a box truck, just a bed. So it was open, completely open. But the sides of the bed were high enough that my head, when I was sleeping, wasn't visible to the street, which is important for safety, because I'm less concerned about the cops seeing me than I am about vagrants,
Right.
random people at night wondering who I am and wanting to mess with me.
Right.
So I get into this U-Haul bed, and I don't even set up my bug net. I don't even put my bug net on. The bugs aren't out. I blow up my air mattress, and I lay back, and I'm in this U-Haul bed, and the stars are just absolutely perfect, I mean, everything about that night was perfect. The temperature was perfect. The stars were perfect. The bedding was perfect. I wasn't anxious. I felt in absolute pure bliss. I turned on my cell phone onto meditation music and airplane mode. So I didn't have any text messages coming through, just had meditation music going, and the stars above me.
In the back of a U-Haul?
In the back of a U-Haul bed somewhere in Oklahoma.
Wow.
It was pretty cool.
That does sound pretty cool.
Yeah.
So then you're in New Mexico, and you're coming across, right? So New Mexico, Arizona. What kind of route did you take through those areas?
Yeah, so I went up through Ruidoso and then all the way down to, not to El Paso, but to the other checkpoint, where Las Cruces. So
Las Cruces, I think, is a little north.
it's a little north of.
It's like 45 minutes north of El Paso, right?
Exactly. So, interestingly enough, though, at this time there was the border crisis was still a thing.
Oh yeah.
It had trickled off a little bit, but everyone was still really worried about these thousands of caravans, coming through and blah, blah, blah.
So did you go down there to see what all the fuss was about?
Well, I actually did. I had gone by bus at one point to go, and so I did go to El Paso, and I took a detour off my route. But through Las Cruces, I thought it was really funny because there's all this hype going on about the Border Patrol, and I walked right by in the desert, like just. No one even noticed.
I think they know what you're all about. I don't think there's any mistaking you for someone trying to sneak across the border. I think we have some of these pictures of you in blue hair.
I guess. But I was warned by a lot of people who tried to pick me up for rides because you always get offered rides.
Right.
And I didn't really want to take a ride, so the people told me though to be very careful because there are a lot of people in the desert area there.
Oh yeah.
A lot of
the other type of coyote.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Human coyotes.
Yeah.
Who would pick up a girl like me in an instant.
Right.
And what was interesting was I was on I-10 at this point, I think, and you're not really. So my Aaron, had routed me around I-10 because you're not allowed to go on I-10. But then it was like one of those things where it was going to be 75 miles to get around this 18-mile portion of I-10 that didn't have a parallel route. So I decided to just go on I-10, and it was hard. I was walking through the desert. So now at this point, it was different than Oklahoma. It was parallel to the highway.
On I-10, or not like a service
I was
road?
parallel on a service road.
But
the service road wasn't a service road. I was walking through the desert.
Yeah.
I was really walking through the desert. It was, there was nothing like it, just totally by myself. And now the scenery is different. New Mexico is mountains. Now it's completely turning. It's like morphing into desert before my eyes. Like basically I got through that checkpoint and it's like turned into desert.
What was it like walking through a checkpoint that normally are cars? Like where they're like, hi, what are you doing?
Well, that's what I'm saying. I didn't walk through the checkpoint.
You walked around the checkpoint?
I walked around the checkpoint through the desert.
And they just kind of like watched through the binoculars?
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, that's happening.
Yep.
I don't think that's anything.
Yeah.
Okay. You want to go out there? I don't want to go out there.
Yeah, that was the
let it
conversation.
pass.
You want to go check out who that girl in the blue is?
Yeah.
So I made it past the checkpoint, but what ended up happening was I made it about like 14 miles into that 18-mile I-10 stretch, and I was getting really tired, and I like sat on the side of the road, and I could have made it probably, but somebody called the cops on me. And the cops picked me up for illegally walking on I-10.
Well, okay, so you made it to, is this New Mexico?
This was still I don't remember if it was in New Mexico or Arizona, but
okay, but
I think New Mexico.
Probably Arizona, they'll pick you up. But you made it all the way to New Mexico and or Arizona without being arrested.
No, I got arrested in Oklahoma.
Okay, wait. We gotta back it up. What did you get arrested in Oklahoma for?
So this story actually is not public yet. I did not post the story when it happened.
Exclusive from
This
the
is
Adventurers Club in Los
exclusive.
Angeles.
Yeah.
The story of Jenny Meatball's arrest in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Vagrancy?
I was very suspicious, apparently, walking along the road. It was a very windy day, and my sign had blown off, so I was carrying my sign.
What does your sign say?
my sign said,
Don't arrest me, I'm hiking for something.
It said hiking across the USA for climate change.
Okay.
Now they may have seen I actually think that they saw my sign before I took it off. And I think that, you have a lot of cops in a small town. They see someone walking for climate change and think hippie, think drugs, So it was very funny. I was on a business call just sitting down on a bench, and the cop came over to me, and I laughed to my business partner. I said, "Oh my God, the cops are here. They're probably going to arrest me." Like I was joking.
Right.
And, the cop started talking to me, and he's like, "Can I see your ID?" I said, "Well, no, because you don't have any reason to, but I'll give you my business card and I'll tell you about what I'm doing so you can look me up. And, I'm working in the community. I'm working on getting these pods for schools. I'm an environmentalist."
I don't think he was into that.
No.
He wasn't into it at all.
Wasn't into it. So he asked me again for my ID, and I'm like, I'm a tourist, so I'm kind of stubborn. And I just felt like I know the law, and you don't have to show your ID unless you're being charged with something.
You sure about that in Oklahoma? It's different in every state.
I know. So actually, I'm very sly, and I actually checked on my phone while I was packing up my bag.
Okay.
I also checked the video camera laws. So while I was packing.
Oh, you recorded him?
So I brought my phone back, and I said, I'm going to record this interaction because I don't feel like you have any reason to be asking for my ID.
This is why you went to jail. I would have done the same thing, to be honest. I would have gone to jail too, but that's why you went to jail. You could have just shown them your ID.
I could have, except that it's not the later. I'm not required to.
Yeah, I would have done the same thing. I would have gone to jail.
Yeah.
But
well, I did end up showing him my ID, to be fair. So he actually
in the booking process?
No, he threw me down to the ground.
Whoa.
For not showing him my ID. And at that point, I thought, okay, this is kind of serious. That's aggression that's not warranted. So let me just, I'm in a place I don't know. Let me show my ID. I don't have anything to hide, So I showed my ID. And after I showed my ID, he still would not let me go. I have nothing on my record, and he wanted to search my bag. And I did not want him to search my bag. So he actually grabbed my pack, and I have this on video. He actually grabbed my pack and threw me down to the ground a second time after I already had shown him my ID. And then he cuffed me and put me in his car.
So how long were you under arrest for?
I was in jail for either a night or two. I can't remember.
And they just let you out after, nothing happened?
No, I had to pay. I had to get bailed out.
How much was your bail?
It was $675, which we haven't gotten back yet.
And what was the charge?
Resisting arrest.
Huh. Interesting.
My charges were dropped, though. The DA dropped my charges. They had no case.
That's what they booked you for?
Yeah.
So was that the only violence that you experienced on this trip?
Before I answer that question, I'm just going to say that when I got arrested and I got my mugshot, I was wearing a shirt that said, "I am the answer."
Do you have that mugshot?
And I do have a copy. I made sure to get a copy of that mugshot before I left. But to answer your question about violence, a lot of different. So that was the only physical violence I experienced. But I definitely did receive a lot of uncomfortable, unsafe threats of violence.
Like the harassment and the catcalling and stuff. I'm sure if you're walking on the side of the road.
Picking me, I mean, to the point where I thought I was going to get thrown in the side of a car.
Yeah.
But I was able to handle it.
Yeah. Keep walking, right?
Actually, I would use eye contact.
Yeah.
And really let them know that I was prepared.
Yeah.
And I would hold up my GPS and say, just so you know, I'm being tracked.
Wow.
And
that's serious, huh?
Yeah. Because, I was met with guys who wanted to put me in their car.
So what was the most unsafe you ever felt? Because I mean, the cops, like, you know, that's
Yeah.
a pain in the butt, right? And it's
But it was,
and
I
it's
didn't
bullshit
feel so
and-
unsafe.
but
I
yeah,
felt
you-
violated,
yeah.
but, you know, I definitely think that probably the cave scenario, I felt a little, you know, kind of scared. But really the most unsafe I can recall was at one point when a guy did pull over, an older guy who was visibly drunk and had a 40 in his hand and a 40 in his cup holder and was already visibly drunk. And
Right.
this was immediately after a hailstorm that I had just gone through in West Virginia. And so I was soaking wet and carrying a wet, heavy pack. I was sort of traumatized by the golf ball size, record-sized hail. Actually, it was in Ohio, I think. Actually, it was right before the tornado. It was just a day or two before. And he rolled down his window, and he was just the tone of his voice was just so creepy. You know, I mean, it was very much like, "Hey, pretty lady.
Ugh. And he's just drunk. And
You
you know
headed
he's
to
not-
Nestorville?"
Ugh.
And I was like, "No, nope, I'm not." And then he said, "Well," and he smirked at me. He smirked like he knew what he was going to do. And he smirked and said, "Well, if you're not headed to Nestorville, you got to be headed to Laurelville because there's only 2 directions, honey." And there were no other cars on the road because this hailstorm created a gigantic fog. So I'm sopping wet. My pack is sopping wet. I want nothing more than to get in the car with someone, but I wouldn't anyway. But like, you know, he rolls down and I'm like, he's going to just hop out of the car and throw me in the back of his pickup and there's no one around. You know? So that's when I first pulled up my spot GPS and said, I was really nice. I said, "Sir, that is so kind. Thank you. Thank you so much for trying to keep me safe. But I'm being tracked. So I would be, you know, not following the rules of my hike if I don't continue on. I'm sure you can understand." And he could pick up between the lines what I was putting down.
Yeah.
He could read what I was saying without saying it.
Right.
What I was saying without saying it was, "Sir, you don't want to go here."
Yeah.
And he picked it up and he said, "Okay, all right."
That's creepy.
Yeah, and then, you know, there were a couple other scenarios like that too, where other people offered me rides that just were either intoxicated or yeah, I mean, I went back to a guy's house who said he would buy me dinner, and we got into a car accident.
Jeez.
He was on coke. You know, I didn't realize he was on coke.
Huh.
He was on meth. We got into a car accident together. He was not supposed to be driving his mother's car. He had stolen his mother's car, basically, and was driving his mother. I had no idea. I was like, "Oh my God, what is going on here?" So
I don't need this drama. I got miles to do.
Yeah,
I
was
don't
like,
have
"Can you
this-
please take me back to the
point that you picked me
the
up
point
at,
that
so
you picked me up?" And, you know, thank God his mom came and saved me and like brought me to her house. But we went back to his house. Oh, this was scary. This is a story. We went back to his house. He was going to make me dinner or something. I don't know how, because his house was
Mac and
filled
cheese.
with crap and dust. But it wasn't, you know, he's a collector. So to be fair, he's a collector. He had a lot of collector's items, fine. But, you know, he was also a drug addict. And he could tell that I was feeling uncomfortable. And he was like, I don't want you to feel uncomfortable. And like, the more uncomfortable I got, the more hyped up he got.
It's the whole like, chill out, chill out, chill
Yeah,
out. It's
yeah.
like, they don't tell me to chill. It's not
Exactly.
making it worse.
And he shoves a gun in my chest. He literally goes to
That's
his
gonna
room,
help.
gets a gun, and shoves it in my chest and goes, "Take this gun, so that you know."
Yeah, get your fingerprints on it.
And you know, I used a very interesting technique with him too. I had him sit because he was also drinking, and so imagine now I'm in a stranger's home, so I don't want to escalate the situation by being like, take me back, take me home. You know, I'm scared. I don't feel good. I have to work with him because I don't want to anger him.
Right.
So I say, you know, "Sir, I don't remember his name. Actually, I do, but I'm not going to say it. I said, can you just sit? Let's just sit and talk for a minute. Let's just sit. Mm-hmm. So I sat him on the couch and I said, okay, now take a deep breath. I said, is it okay if I walk you through a little meditation, breathing exercise so we can both calm down? And he let me. He let me walk him through a breathing exercise. So I had him put his hands above his head and close his eyes. And I had him go like this and calm down. So I literally walked him through an exercise to calm him down. Mm-hmm. And then he went to go take a swig of his alcohol. And I said, please hold off until you drive me home. Because I didn't know his mom was going to come save me at this point.
Right.
So I said, please hold, I said, I don't care what you do. Just please wait until you drop me off. And he said, okay. And, I just was so proud of myself for being able to talk him down. And then I said, let's call your mom. Let's tell her about the car. And this is like a 49-year-old man.
Yeah.
I'm not talking to a 19-year-old guy.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's been around the block, a smart man who just has a problem with drugs. And it could have been a very dangerous situation for me because even if he didn't intend to hurt me, which I don't think he did, he could have hurt me.
Yeah.
So that was pretty scary.
I just feel like, oh my God, I don't have time for this drama, right?
I was like, all I wanted was a meal. I thought you were going to give me a meal. There's no food in this, Because really, honest to God, all you're thinking about is food.
Yeah.
I thought about food.
How many calories do you think you're burning a day?
Oh my God, I was eating for like 3 people.
Yeah.
A small girl like me, I would go into the restaurants and just scarf down food. I had to explain to my followers who were people who were donating to me, right? And they're like, why does she need so much money? I'm like, I'm spending $60 a day on food.
Yeah.
Now, do I have to be? Maybe not. I did shop at gas stations and dollar stores and grocery stores for dry food in my pack.
That stuff doesn't have as much calories in it though, right?
It doesn't.
Nothing beats that bloomin' onion from Outback Steakhouse, right?
When you haven't seen a hot meal in 4 days, you're going to Outback, baby.
Oh, yeah. So yeah, let's get back. Geez.
Okay, so we're in Arizona.
Stories. We went on a dark tangent there, but that's a reality of this type of thing, right?
It is.
But we're back in Arizona.
Bring us back to Arizona. Okay, so right before I cross the border into Arizona, I meet another hiker.
Oh yeah, this is when you got arrested. Sorry. So we backed up for the first time you got arrested. We talked about violence.
Yes.
The police officer. Yeah, big surprise, right? So then. That happened, and you got arrested a second time for, where were you sleeping? The second arrest?
No, well, I didn't get arrested per se, but I was walking through the desert on I-10, and I was not legally allowed to do that. So I got picked up. Yeah, I got picked up. He did not give me a ticket. He wanted to make sure I was okay.
Oh, that's good.
And that's how it should be. That's why, I was confused. The Oklahoma cops
So you got one good experience, one bad experience?
Most of my experiences with cops were actually overall very good.
Good.
I do have to say thank you, to our men in blue for protecting us, but also don't overstep your bounds, just don't. Work with people. That's, I felt if I was a young black man, it would have ended up very differently for me. I was a young white woman who got arrested for no reason.
Yeah.
So I just encourage people who are listening to think about what that is like, because that, those times, that's happening all over the country to people all the time, not just people who walk across America. But fast forward to some of the better stories. We're at the border of Arizona. I'm more than halfway there at this point. For me, it feels like the home stretch, even though I've still got all of Arizona and California to walk. And it's New Year's Eve. I spent Christmas alone, which was fine, but, it was a nice little cute hotel that I got that happened to have a red and green bedroom. It was like very, very cool Christmas
I'll take your
story.
Christmas bedroom.
Yeah, I was like,
I'm treating myself.
That's exactly what it was like. It was like the cheapest motel, but it had like a crystal chandelier in the walkway. It was a vintage kind of style, like, kind of the same feel as this.
Yeah.
And so fast forward to Christmas Eve or New Year's Eve, during the day, I meet another hiker who's actually walking across the entire perimeter of America.
Oh, that's interesting.
So go follow Rue McHenrick. I think his, I'll connect you to him, but it's Back to the Pack. If you search Back to the Pack on Facebook, you can follow. He's hiking the American Perimeter Trail. That's the PCT, the AT, and the AD, and the American Perimeter. So it's a huge 12,000 mile track.
I know there's a northern trail that goes somewhere, I think, from the Dakotas across.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what his route is, but I met him, and we celebrated New Year's Eve together. You know, we went to a little hostel and had a nice bed and breakfast, and he played me some music, and it was a really lovely encounter for New Year's Eve.
And where was this? This is Arizona at this point?
This was at the Arizona border. Arizona had the most gorgeous sunsets. I mean, I walked from the hostel a couple extra miles just because I wanted to go into the mountains and see the sunset. And pink, like the color of my dress, pink sunsets, gorgeous. And my Arizona journey started. And Arizona was all sunsets. Everything about it was mountains and sunsets. And
were you basically on 10?
So you can't walk 10, so I had to go up around 10.
Okay.
I ended up going through the Apache Reservation, so I met some natives. A lot of people warned me about the Apache Reservation.
And how did that go? Because, I mean, you're just some white person walking through
and that's
their
why they
reservation.
warned me. But, I'm a white person who is walking for land stewardship, and part of land stewardship is indigenous wisdom. Mm-hmm. And so when they found out that I was doing a documentary about protecting indigenous tribes and protecting Standing Rock, North Dakota, I was regarded in the tribe. So once you get regarded in the tribe, they take care of you like tribe members. So that's what happened.
So how long were you on that reservation for?
About a week or two.
Walking through it?
Yeah.
But then, like, once they found you, so to speak, like, everybody knew?
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
They put me up in the tribe casino.
Nice.
And I got put up in the community center.
Ah, very cool.
And then they sort of linked me to other tribe members that lived farther on down the road outside the reservation.
Yeah.
So there's another place called Oak Flats in Arizona, which is like a native land. And I stayed there, and I was gifted a knife there.
You should have brought that. This table's looking pretty bare tonight.
I know, right? I know. I had two knives at this point. I was given a machete in Oklahoma, and then that machete got traded out for an even nicer machete in Texas. And then I got a paring knife in Arizona.
A really sharp one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
And they let me stay. I got the native blessing to stay in their traditional Wikia hut.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which, white people are not supposed to do.
So they put you up in a Wikia hut?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was very cool.
Yeah.
It was like a little teepee. It's smaller. It's made of either straw or like corn maize, the kind of.
And that's not like some tourist thing that they have on the side of the road.
It's on their land, and people do come camping there, but there's campsites, and then people camp on the campsites. They don't camp in the Wikia huts unless you're invited to.
That's pretty cool.
Or you do anyway when you're not invited to,
Yeah. So where did you cross into California?
So, fast forward through most of Arizona, other than the flats and the Indian reservation, was pretty much just more desert. It's all the same, more desert. And I crossed into California in Blythe. So when I got to California, there is a video of me crossing into California, I think. I don't know if you can find it, but I was just, I was ecstatic.
Yeah.
Just absolutely
It is a great
ecstatic.
state, is it not? Blythe is not representative, but everybody at this club has probably been to Blythe.
Yeah.
In some fashion or the other. I mean, everybody's been there, right? So you crossed over in Blythe?
Crossed over in Blythe, and then I went a little south into, Oh, I went through, so I came through Quartzsite, Arizona, and then into Blythe. So I went through Phoenix, Quartzsite, Blythe, and then I went into the Palo Verde Wilderness. Now there's a story here.
Yeah.
Hey guys, real quick, I found the video of you cross into California.
Oh, yeah,
let's
let's
do
do
that.
that one.
Can you full screen it?
No doubt.
Put it up there. We're not going to be able to hear the audio in this room, I don't think.
It's very short, the video.
Yeah, go ahead, Andy. Can you full screen that for everybody? It's not up.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
Is that
Oh
you
my God.
laughing and crying in the
Yeah.
background?
Yeah.
Oh my god, it's so amazing.
It's amazing, I made it.
Oh shit!
Can you switch over to that video there?
This feels better than an orgasm.
There it is. So this is the bridge.
California,
California State Line. So that's the bridge over the Colorado River, right?
I'm in California.
Yes.
I'm in California.
Look
So-
pretty ecstatic there.
You can see it on my face, right?
Yeah.
I think I said, this is better than an orgasm.
I mean, your last state. I mean, how many states did you cross through?
Depends if you count DC or not. It's I say 15 if you count DC. Or
15.
14
So
if you don't.
the big journey, and you're finally in the last state.
Yeah.
You cross over in Blythe,
Yep.
and then you turn south
Mm-hmm.
into the Palo Verde Wilderness.
Yep.
So what happened in the wilderness? Oh, wait, let me guess.
yeah.
There's two things that I know that are in the Palo Verde Wilderness. One is Salvation Mountain, and two is Slab City. Is it involved in either of those two?
Well, I did go through those areas.
Okay, all right.
So I do have stories about that.
I'll let you tell the story that you want to tell.
Yeah, so the Palo Verde Wilderness, though, the first thing that I went through was the actual wilderness territory, which is no people. It's desert mountains, which is interesting because I've been in the mountains and I've been in the desert, and now it's the desert mountains.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, upstairs, how could you plan this any better? Like, I've been through the mountains, I've been through the desert, and now I'm in the desert mountains. And just, I didn't prepare well enough, really. I just didn't have enough water.
It sucks out there.
Yeah. I didn't want to take too much water because it is so heavy. And I was having issues with charging my phone.
Mm-hmm.
So I just hadn't gotten to a location that had an outlet, to be able to. The issue was I was on a time crunch now because now I'm facing the end of I'm seeing my deadline, my 1 year mark,
Mm-hmm.
my March 10th mark is like, okay, well, every day that I chip away, I could stay here for a couple hours and charge my phone, but then that's 6 miles I'm not hiking.
And what month was this?
This is now the end of February. So everything was a trade-off.
So you've got basically 10, 12 days. You got 2 weeks to get from the California border to the Pacific Ocean.
Somewhere around there. I don't remember the exact days.
Right.
Yeah. So everything became a trade-off. Against the clock.
Start throwing stuff out of your pack.
I'm like, how do I do this? So the biggest trade-off was charging my phone.
Mm-hmm.
Now, charging your phone is important for safety.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for navigation. It's important to look up where the next services are. It's important.
Mm-hmm.
But I also wanted to make it.
Right.
So knowing that I wasn't going to have service anyway, I decided not to spend too many hours charging up my phone to full battery because I knew it was going to die anyway.
Right.
So I get into the wilderness, and lo and behold, it's nighttime. And at this point, okay, my food bag had been stolen in Oak Flats where I slept in the Wikia hut. They stole my food bag.
Who?
I don't know.
Raccoons or like people?
I don't know. Could be either.
Like some sort of animal? Yeah. Okay.
Could be either. But in my food bag was odor-proof food carriers. So
The canisters, like the bear.
well,
No?
these were bags, but yeah,
Yeah.
same concept. Now that's critically important. Odor-proof food bags are critically important for when you're hiking. They saved me, I think, in conjunction with peeing outside my tent and flashing my light and other survival skills. Those odor-proof food bags were clutch because they disintegrate the smell so much so that any remaining smell would be caught up with your smell as a person or with whatever's around you. Once my bags were stolen, I just had my food in a plastic bag, which
Like a
means
Ziploc.
not even. I had my garbage in my Ziploc
And the food in like a
and
lucky.
the food in like a gas station bag.
Okay.
No, that's not good. It's not good. Entering the wilderness like that.
So what kind of
It's not
animals
good.
are in the Palo Verde wilderness?
Definitely coyotes, but
Right.
I'm 99% sure that I was surrounded by a bobcat. So I woke up in the middle of the night to a growl, a loud,
Outside your tent?
directly next to my head.
Jeez.
Now, to be honest with you, my instinct was that wasn't real.
Crazy.
I was like, I'm crazy. I'm scared. I'm making it up. Like, that wasn't real. And actually, so I realized I had put my food in my tent. I think I had done that on purpose because I wasn't sure what the best thing to do was, to like keep it close to me so the scents intertwined, or to keep it far away from me,
I think they can smell the difference.
probably. So I don't know what I was thinking. I left it in my tent. And so silly me, I'm like, I think that growl was in my head.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go put my food, but I'm going to go put my food away from me just in case.
Right.
So I get out of my tent and I look around, and I will be honest with you, I didn't see a cat. But, you know, it's also the wilderness,
Right.
so you can't see.
Yeah.
So I walk about 40 or 50 feet away and I toss my food bag. And I get back in my tent and I'm 100% convinced that now, because I didn't see it, that it had to be made up. So I sit in my tent and I just, I have the light on. And I turn the light off. And as soon as I turn the light off, next to my face on the other side. So the cat had moved. So I knew it was real.
Yeah.
It was real.
So what'd you do?
I didn't do anything. I didn't move. My light was off and I didn't do anything.
Jeez.
I just didn't move.
Jeez. So was your food there in the morning?
My food bag was there. Who knows? I didn't see it, but I'm 99% sure it was a bobcat. It didn't sound big enough to be a mountain lion. My guess is that it was some kind of mountain cat. And that was my first experience with, and also I knew it was there because the coyotes were so far away.
Right.
I could hear the coyotes howling, but they were so far away. And normally the coyotes would howl around my tent, and I would play music for the coyotes, and they would stop howling.
Just little puppy dogs, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
So you went down
Definitely puppy dogs.
So the Palo Verde wilderness is not a lifeless wilderness. There's coyotes and cats out there, huh?
Yes, absolutely.
So you went down through, what side of the Salton Sea did you come down? Did you come down the east side or the west side? I guess it would be the west side of the Salton Sea. No?
I thought it was the north side.
Well, the Salton Sea runs like north and south, right? It's like a big...
Then I
think Slab
came around
City's on the
on
west side.
the northwest of it, yeah.
Okay. So you came down, and did you stop at those places?
I did.
Yeah?
I stopped in Slab City.
You spent a night there?
I did.
How was that? Because a lot of those people are there because they might think it's cool. I don't think anybody's there for the reason that you're there, though.
No. Well, do you know of East Jesus, the intentional community?
No. Okay, so I'm wrong. There are people that are there intentionally.
There are people there intentionally. A small amount. And
Can I put air quotes on intentionally?
Yeah, what did I put air quotes on waypoint?
Yeah,
I guess
what-
you get
they,
one.
They are there intentionally living in Slab City because they okay.
Yeah. So there is a cultural aspect of Slab City that is to be revered.
Mm-hmm.
You know, East Jesus is the prime example. Art made of trash.
Mm-hmm.
Good art made of trash. Off-grid living, completely off-grid. They're living on solar, but the city itself, Slab City, I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I wanted to get the hell out of there.
Yeah.
Like, I was not comfortable. Very smart people, and the people who were helping me, Bo, great guy, you know, but like the actual environment is not for me personally.
Yeah.
But it is how I got connected to the LA Adventurers Club. So
It's true.
there's everything for a reason.
Did you stop by Salvation Mountain?
I did.
That's a pretty cool place, huh?
Yeah, I did. I liked.
Did you stay there? Because I've always wanted to stay in one of those little rooms that he made. I don't know what the deal with it is legally at this point.
Yeah, you know, I didn't see any rooms so much as I saw. I mean,
Well, there's the mountain, but
Yes,
off
they
the
could-
sides, there's all these little like adobe structures, right? It's like a little, domed thing that has some vent holes in it and stuff.
I don't know if I saw those up close.
Oh, wow, yeah.
I just saw that we walked through the mountain, and I could see like parts of the side where there were like rooms that were holding things or art, like rooms that had art in them, but I don't remember seeing any adobe structures.
Yeah, I mean, I'm by no means an expert on there. I've been there once, but I know he basically lived there, and there were, and maybe they're destroyed. I don't even know. They could be destroyed at this point. I'm not sure what kind of shape it's in.
Well,
It's been a
so
couple years.
Salvation Mountain is like basically almost right in Slab City. It's only about a mile away.
Yeah, so I don't know with its proximity, like with the guy passed, so maybe, who knows?
But, you know, I saw their library, and I saw, I met some people who have a lot of wisdom and, you know, do have a lot to offer. I think it also is a runaway place for people who really don't want to be in society.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trash, and that bothers me as an environmentalist. There's
Right.
no waste management, really. But it was great to experience.
Right. Which is an interesting thing from like a conservation
I did
perspective.
apparently get a death threat, though. But go ahead on
There.
the conservation.
Well, no, it's just interesting because you talk about there's no trash service, right? There's no water either, probably. I don't know. But, those are important things because, as you urbanize, as you get people closer and closer together, you've got to find a way to spread that out, to spread out that trash. Because if you're a person and you go live and you have like this giant range of like 40 square miles, you can't possibly mess it up. It'd be very hard, right? But when you start to get people really close to each other, their waste has to go somewhere. You have to get clean water somewhere. You got to think about all those infrastructure things, and you got to do it in a sustainable way. And I feel like, one of the things about LA is like, we've got a water problem here, right? Like the water and sewer infrastructure was not built for as big as we got. And now we got to figure out how to deal with that. And that out there in Slab City, I feel like that's kind of a microcosm. It's like, if one person comes out here, they can live off the grid, they can be successful, and they can not jack up the whole environment. But then you throw a bunch of people on it. That's interesting. I'm just thinking through it. It's like a city planning thing. It's like, hey, at some point you need hard city infrastructure to deal with all this trash.
I not only agree, but I think it's a great segue. And I mean, we can sort of finish off the walk part, but it's a great segue to get people thinking about infrastructure.
Yeah.
Because We Are Mother Earth is really about infrastructure. And the Spark Pods is one part of the infrastructure that is a highlight that, we are excited about. But We Are Mother Earth is really about imagining what our infrastructure could look like if we revered our Mother Earth as we do, the dollar, the green dollar.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's interesting because, oftentimes, in an economic sense, you talk about wanting to make money, right? And there's always a cost, right? And sometimes that cost is deferred. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. Like if I have an industrial process and I make something and then I create waste, right? There's two ways I can deal with that waste. I can pile it up behind my factory and it costs me $0, or I can completely deal with it and make sure that it's safe, and that might cost me a ton of money. Well, that's kind of where like the intersection of like who has to pay for that. It's either the company right now that pays for it, that made the waste, or someone else is going to have to pay for it later. But there's always a cost to it.
So I'm so glad that you made the analogy exactly that way, because it's a great starting point, right? So you gave scenario A and scenario B. So now I'm going to provide scenario C. And We Are Mother Earth is really focusing on stopping the lens of a point A to B spectrum of production to consumption, where the cost always exists, and instead creating a circle, a regenerative cycle where the cost is actually reabsorbed into producing the next round of stuff. So it's similar to the idea and the concept of recycling, although recycling is actually not really a regenerative practice because of the way so much of our plastic and other materials doesn't actually break down. So it's like a faux cycle. But if you think about the rationale and the lens and the reasoning behind recycling, that's what we're trying to do with all different types of waste and cost management and deferment, because the costs could be deferred onto planet Earth, or they could be deferred onto human quality of life.
Right.
So how many workers is it taking to clean up that pile of trash that you left outside your building for 10 years, 10 years later versus, the 1 year.
Dealing with it up front.
Dealing with it up front. So it's the human cost, it's the human quality of life cost, and it's the environmental cost. And We Are Mother Earth is unique in the sense that we are trying to look at both of those in an integrated way, as opposed to human rights activists who look at the human rights costs,
Right.
and environmentalists who look at the environmental costs. We're trying to say, wait a minute, human rights activists and environmentalists need to come together to create infrastructure and city planning systems that take these costs into account. What does that look like? So
That's interesting. Yeah, I bet there are a lot of lessons out in Slab City. Well, I mean, it's just, it's idealistic right out there, and I'm sure there's a lot to learn, but I would be fascinated to go out there and just see, I don't know if it sounds bad, but to see what goes wrong, right? Because it's like, oh, well, because I think a lot of people go out there with good intentions and they want to live off the grid and off the land, but then, you kind of see what went wrong, and you're like, oh, well, that's something that you got to take into account. And how do those lessons, translate into, a large city, that we deal with? Anyway,
Yeah,
but
cities
before
are
we go
different
down
than
this, I
rurals.
want to get
So
you to
yes.
the Pacific Ocean.
yes, get me to the, take me back.
So you're through the Palo Verde Wilderness. Where did you, what are the geographic landmarks that got you across the mountains from, because there's a little mountain range there.
Yeah, the San Bernardino. So that's another quick story. This is kind of fun. Aaron route, my Aaron
Okay.
route. Aaron is the best, don't get me wrong, but he had a mistake.
Yeah.
And his mistake was that he told me to prep for a 1,400 foot climb over the San Bernardino Mountains. 1,400 feet above sea level.
That's nothing.
It's not that high, it's not that bad. So I'm thinking, okay, I actually get to the base of the mountain, and I decide to camp overnight and start the trek in the morning. Now in the morning,
at the base of where?
at the San Bernardino
Do you remember
Mountains.
the city that you're in? Because a lot of our members,
Yeah,
we're in
so
California now, so
I had
people
just gone through what's the big tourist location? Palm Springs. So I had just gone
Okay.
through Palm Springs,
know. Okay.
and then there's another Palm something after Palm Springs.
Palmdale?
I don't know, but I had just gone
Of
through
Afro
Palm
Man
Springs.
No?
Cathedral City.
Okay. Yeah, Palmdale's a little bit north of LA.
Okay.
So you came through Palm Springs, right?
I came through Palm Springs,
And
through Cathedral
Idlewild
City.
is the high peak there. That's what's up at the top of Idlewild? I'm blanking on it. It's one of the big peaks around here?
I don't know.
San Jacinto.
I don't know. I don't
Okay.
think I went over a peak in Palm Springs.
You would have seen it to the left, to the south.
It's possible.
Yeah.
Um,
So 1400
Was it
foot
Palm
climb.
Desert?
Palm Desert.
Palm
yeah.
Desert, yeah.
Thank you. So Palm Springs, Palm Desert, Cathedral City, and I made it to the base of the mountain, the San Bernardino Mountain, at night, and I decided to hike in the morning. Fine. I wake up and I realize my phone's dead, and I think, even though it's only a 1,400 foot climb, I don't think my phone should be dead. That's not good. So I call an Uber to go back into Palm Desert so I can charge my phone at a Starbucks. And the lady who picks me up is a hairdresser and says that she'll redo my hair for me because at this point it was like just
Wasn't
crazy.
blue enough?
Well, all the blue had faded away. I had dyed it red in between after that, and it was just like a mess.
She's just like, oh, girl, let me
She was
let me
like,
take care of you.
she's like, you can't arrive, in
LA.
LA looking like this.
This is a Palm Desert look. We need to
This
get
is-
you looking like LA.
Yeah. So she had a high fashion salon in Palm Springs, so she brought me back, did my hair, and I'm thinking, the time's going by, right? And I'm like, lady, I gotta, not lady, or I said thank you. So I was very grateful, but I said I gotta get back,
Right.
to the hike. I need at least a half a day to hike over the mountain at least. But I thought, oh, it's 1,400 feet. It's going to be fine. So I get back there. I don't start hiking the mountain until 3 o'clock. And I start hiking. I'm 2 miles in and I'm looking at my GPS, Gaia GPS, and it tells me my elevation. And it's already at 1,450 feet and I'm only 2 miles into the hike. It's a 16-mile hike. And I'm like,
Are you
something's
going
not
down
right.
the Pacific Crest Trail at this point? Because the PCT runs out right there. The
I
PCT crosses 10,
had just crossed the area where it crossed the PCT.
But you didn't go. up
I didn't
the
go
PCT?
on the PCT.
Okay.
No. But I had stopped in a couple cafes that they were like, "Oh, you must be a PCT hiker," so I know
Right.
I was there. And so I start I text Aaron because I still have service at this point, and I'm like, "Aaron, what's the deal? Why does it say I'm at 1,450 feet?" And he just goes, "Oops, it's 1,400 meters." 4,500 feet.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? I'm sorry, what? And what am I supposed to do? I can't go back at this point. I'm up against the clock. I'm already 2 miles into the hike.
Right.
I'm not going to go back and have her drive me around the mountain. This is the mountain. This is my final mountain. This is my hike,
Right.
So I'm like, okay. And I ask him, please tell me that the peak is only a couple miles in. The peak is 12 miles into the hike.
Nice.
So I'm trudging. I'm sweating.
Yeah.
Like, I'm hiking up this very high mountain, and the sun is setting, and it's gorgeous. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's absolutely gorgeous. But I don't have service now. The sun is setting. I'm at mile marker 8, and I'm like, it's like
Any place to
8
camp?
o'clock. I mean, not really.
It's just trail.
It's just trail. And I just keep going. I just keep walking. And as the sun sets and turns to twilight, I do my normal precautions. I turn my headlamp on. I turn my phone light on. So I have a headlamp and a light. I turn the music on my phone so that animals know that I'm there.
Right.
And it was kind of fun for a couple hours. Like between 8 and 9 for like an hour. I was like hiking through through the mountain. I'm like
Right.
up the mountain, listening to my song. I'm like, hey, I'm a badass. Oh yeah. Like it was great. It was
Yeah.
cool. I just saw this gorgeous sunset. Everything was cool. And then I just start getting tired, and I'm like, okay, now I'm at the peak, and there's like cliffs, and it's dark.
Right.
And I'm like, this is now it's kind of scary. And I get to the peak, and I start going downhill, and I'm so relieved. I'm like, oh my gosh, like the downhill, I'm on the downhill. And I get service back. I text Aaron. I'm like, please tell me this is it, right? I reached the 4,500 peak. And he's like, that's it. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a badass. And then all of a sudden I look in front of me and there's another hill. And it's a steep hill. It's like it's steep.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know how to show people, it's like
Steeper than you want it to be at that time.
with my heavy pack.
Right.
You're not rock climbing. It's just a trail.
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, I don't know how I'm going to make this, how I'm going to make it up this. I'm crawling up the hill on my hands and knees. And I start to see mountain lion poop.
Great. Because the mountain lion's just doing his little cat thing. Like, no problem. I'm going to come up this mountain. Oh, look, someone's struggling.
I saw the first it was like a big poop. And I thought, I just don't know what else this could be. It has to be mountain lion poop. And I'm watching it and I feel like a geologist or something, or whatever science it is. I'm like, okay, this one's white and crusted over, so that must have been from a couple days ago.
Yeah.
This one's brown and crusted over, so that must have been,
poopologist.
forensic poopologist. This one's brown and crusted over, so that might have been from, yesterday. This one's brown and not crusted over. This one's soft, it's gotta be closed, I'm just like, oh my God. So now I'm getting scared, and I'm only a mile away from my freedom.
What is at the mile mark? Like
nothing.
Campsite?
A residential neighborhood.
Oh, okay.
But
so you're just out of the wilderness.
out of the wilderness.
Okay.
So I'm walking and I'm preparing for the mountain lion. I'm preparing to see the mountain lion.
Right.
And so I've read a lot about it at this point, because I've read even more about it after the bobcat in the Palo Verde wilderness. And so I'm preparing for the mountain lion to come up to me and growl, or something.
Right.
And I'm like, what I'm gonna do. And then and in my head, it all happens with the mountain lion coming up to me this way.
Right. Not just jumping on your back and.
Not just like, it's like I have a chance.
Yeah.
In my head. In my head, I have a chance.
Probably not how it would go down.
Well, as I'm mentally preparing, I hear the growl.
Uh-huh.
And it's behind me. And once again, I don't see it with my eyes. It's about the distance of probably, where that door is.
Okay.
That's how far the growl is. And
Past the giant polar bear?
And where the polar bear is where the brush starts.
Okay.
So it's just at the edge of the brush.
People not familiar with the club will be very
confused.
Polar bear? Anyway, so this mountain lion growls at you.
So this mountain lion growls for me, and I have never, that's the scariest I felt on the whole trip. I felt more scared than when the mountain lion was behind my head, because I'm now moving and a moving target. At least with the tent, it didn't know, it knows.
It doesn't know, it's a big thing. It doesn't know
It's a big thing. It doesn't know if I'm a man or a woman. It doesn't know anything about me. It doesn't know my size. It can't see me. And I thought it was a bobcat. This was a mountain lion in the wilderness, very close to me. And my instinct was to run. My instinct was to run, and it took me every cell in my body, every preparational cell, that said, don't run, because that's not what you're supposed to do. I turned around to face the mountain lion, and I shined my light at it. I still never saw it. I'm not going to make anything up, but I shined my light at it, and it growled again, and it kept growling. I mean, there was no doubt I was facing a mountain lion. And I shined my light, I played my music, and I walked backward for about a half a mile until I could turn around and speed up my pace.
Right.
And the craziest part of the story is when I get to the exit of the wilderness, I feel so relieved. I'm like, like I climb through the residential barrier gate that's there. I climb through and I think, okay, mountain lion's not going to come into the residential neighborhood, which they do, by the way.
Oh, for sure.
But I met instead.
Los Angeles names its mountain lions. They're like our friends here.
Oh my God. Well, I don't have enough experience with this. And I met instead a dog who must have smelled the mountain lion and thought I was it, who literally attacked me.
Really?
And was jumping in my face. And there were no owners around.
Yeah, that's scary. Dogs.
It was
no owners. Yeah.
No owners. The dog was growling and jumping at me. It didn't scratch me, but it was jumping in my face to the point where, thank God, I did have my knife on my hip, and I took out my knife. And I had to put my knife in this dog's face. Up until this point in the trip, I had not ever had to put a knife in an animal or a human's face. I had used pepper spray. I had used a whistle. The whistle would make the
Yeah.
dogs back up. I have had
Did you
dogs.
pepper spray this dog?
I didn't have my pepper spray on me. I had left it actually I had taken it out because
I'll do a number on a dog.
I know, and I had taken it out because I knew I was going into the wilderness, and I left it at a Denny's that I was like eating lunch at or something. It was crazy. So I had no pepper spray, and that's why I was scared in the wilderness too. And they didn't sell it at the gas stations. So I had my knife in this dog's face, and it was the same thing. I had a moment where I felt really scared for my life, and then I felt really empowered because just like I had done with the guy in the car, and when I said, I'm being tracked, and I looked him in the face, I realized that the dog could sense my fear. Because at first I was like, go, like get away, get home, go home, kind of
Yeah.
scared.
Right.
And and it wasn't working. And
Yeah.
I realized that I had to make myself big. And I yelled I made my voice deep, and I said, "Hey, sit, go," and I'm not even an animal person. I don't even have dogs, so it sounds a little crazy. When people first heard that I was going hiking, they were like, "What?"
Yeah.
Like, are you sure? You don't even like camping. But it's not true. It's not true. I love being outdoors,
Yeah.
but I'm also very indoorsy. Like I'm a little bit of both. So that was like the end. But from there, from dealing with that mountain lion and that dog, was the home stretch. I made it to Oceanside.
That's interesting that you did that. That's a cool mountain range, right? But that's an interesting route to take because I guess there's just no good way to get to Santa Monica from Palm Springs, like
yeah,
hiking.
I mean, there's not really.
You went
I mean,
down
he
south
could have
and then-
mapped it, but I wanted to do a victory march up
And that's
the
a great
boardwalk.
one, I think,
So
along that.
from Oceanside to Venice was the March for Global Unity, and we didn't get as much press around it as I would have liked. Actually, the foundation that I dedicated it to in partnership with We Are Mother Earth, the founder actually passed away. And it was very symbolic for me. So marching those last 100 miles, his name is Ryan Long, and he was the founder of the Global Unity Foundation. And he had invited me to an Oscars gala to celebrate people of all faiths and from all walks of life coming together during the Oscars to donate money and give back to peace building and the sustainable development goals. So We Are Mother Earth, with our environmental initiatives and human rights initiatives, very much falls into that category. And so walking that 100 miles was really meaningful for me from Oceanside. And I thought of Ryan a lot. And I walked through the night from San Bernardino. I slept one night in a local park there, and then, or in a national park. And then I walked through the PCT area, and then I walked through the night for like 2 nights in a row. It was like crazy. I didn't have any sleep, and made it to Oceanside on time so that I could do that 100-mile march. And
So it was 100 miles from Oceanside all the way up to Santa Monica, right?
yeah.
So was that along like the PCH or the El Camino Real?
Yeah, so actually, I mean, to be perfectly transparent, because I had to skip Camp Pendleton,
Yeah.
I lost a couple miles on that. But yeah, the rest of it
Wonder-
was.
Can you walk the beach?
There's
You can't,
there's
can you?
nothing there.
Nah, that's all military base.
Yeah, it's nothing there you can do. I tried every way to get around it. I tried to go to the beach.
Marines at every gate.
Yeah, there's just it wasn't feasible except to go back east and come around,
Right.
which just didn't make sense for me since I had already reached the coast.
Right. So where did you dip your feet in the ocean at Oceanside? Or did you hold off because you wanted a more? Because in terms of beaches, there are better beaches along your route.
I'm gonna decline to answer that question. It's an answer I hold dear to my heart.
Of where you actually finished.
Of where I actually dipped my feet in the ocean. So
I would have done it at Laguna Beach.
there were a
probably
lot
the
of
best.
there were a lot of nice beaches, and you know,
I wouldn't have done it
I
at
will say that I
Oceanside.
dipped my feet in the ocean before I hit my 1 year mark. I'll just say that.
That's good.
That was the. That
So when was the official? Okay, so the official end to your hike, what is special to you and locked away forever in your head? But when was the official end for the public?
Yeah, so the official end for the public was on March 10th.
Okay,
In Venice Beach.
Venice Beach.
Yeah.
Nice.
And I had some friends come and meet me, and I had a film crew there, and I actually had some local press meet me in Oceanside. So, you know, we did get, it was really nice. Venice is very symbolic for me. It's where I first saw, when I moved to LA for the first time in 2013, I pulled up to Venice Beach, and that was the first place that I stepped foot.
As it should be. That's the LA beach.
Yeah, so it was perfect. Everything about the ending was perfect. My dear friends were there with me, and shout out to Laura and Dawn and Liz and Anna and Sir Bailey and Barry and my videographer. And if I forgot you, I'm sorry. But to all the people who were there with me, thank you so much.
That is a fantastic hike.
Yeah.
So what we like to do at the end is, I'm sure the questions have piled up on our comment feed. So we like to offer our audience a little chance to ask questions, and I'm sure they'll put some more in there. But Andy, do we have some loaded up? Any good questions in there? No bad questions.
All right.
As in, Andy, don't give us bad questions. Filter them out.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you.
I want the bad questions.
Oh, sure. I'll give you everything I got.
Give me what I want.
So thank you, first of all, to everyone who has commented in the chat and who is still hanging around. It's been really great for you to take this journey with us. Let's do a few shout-outs while we wait for the questions to roll in. First of all, we got Brian Brecht. Hello from North Carolina. I know you left a little bit later, Brian, but just want you to hear this. You did get a shout-out. Thomas Dietz, hello from Marin County. Hello, Thomas. Rock Roll says, night hikes rule. I think this is when you were talking about the first time you night hiked, to which I say absolutely. And our first question comes from Brian Brecht, and he would love to know more about the documentary process. What other challenges did the production process pose? In addition, what is the film? Is the film complete and available to view?
So aside from like your social media postings that you went, you took this gimbal camera and all that. You shot a ton of other footage, right?
I did,
You
yeah.
have something in the works that you're editing down?
I do. I'm really excited about that question. Was that Brian?
Yeah, that was Brian.
Thank you, Brian, for that question. Yeah, so I actually started working on a documentary in 2016 called Rise Like the Water, The People's Fight for Freedom. And that documentary is a project of We Are Mother Earth, and it journeys the development of new communities, self-sufficient and self-sustaining communities, including indigenous wisdom and how indigenous wisdom can lend a really big role in the way that we solve some of these challenges. So originally, it was going to be more about the natives and about the community building, but when I went on the walk, we decided to morph it a little bit, and we may change the title. So we have a couple of other working titles right now, but we do have a production company, a professional production company, which I'm so honored. I want to shout out the ETV network, and they are going to be doing a mini documentary about the Earthwalk and including it in a part of their series called The Pushback. So The Pushback is a stories of resilience. And so we're going to work with some of the footage that we have from Standing Rock, some of the footage that we have from the walk, and some interview footage from me and from my colleagues at We Are Mother Earth, some of our affiliates, to develop a storyline that makes sense and can tie in a lot of this listening across the country that I did on the Earthwalk, as well as the scenic parts of the journey, some B-roll. So in terms of, to answer the direct question of what were the challenges of filming, I would say that, carrying the equipment, obviously.
Yeah, that's a lot.
And this setup time. But I think the biggest challenge was you're building really quick relationships with people. You know, I met you on the side of a road. You're interested in my story. You're not necessarily expecting me to say, actually, I'm interested in your story.
Right.
Right? So I tended to be someone who people trust and who they enjoy telling their stories to, because I'm a storyteller. So we can click in that way. And lots of people wanted to open up to me about their stories. But it was really, really tricky to get them to agree to do it on tape.
Right.
So it's a very, very different thing when they think that they're telling me in confidence. Now, I don't ever want to, misuse or abuse someone's confidence or trust. So it's imperative that I let them know, even really before they tell me anything too intimate, that I'm writing a book and making a documentary film. And so I invite them to consensually share with me. And a lot of great people did. And I got some really amazing stories from people from all walks of life that tie in with the themes of We Are Mother Earth, which are quality of life, respect for women, urban planning and infrastructure design, self-sustaining communities, freedom, and art and thriving. So, I mean, it's a lot. It's dense. It's really dense, and yet it's everything that we desire. It's everything that we want to wake up to. We want to talk about these things. We want to create. So even though it's the film will be dense, we're going to condense it, and we're going to pack it into a mini documentary first, release that mini documentary while we're compiling the storyboard for the larger, longer series of probably 3 films, which will be, before the walk, and,
Wow.
after the walk and what comes.
So when
of
do you
that.
think we're going to get to see that mini documentary?
I can't say too much because it's a bit proprietary.
Okay.
But I will say that they're coming to film my in-person interviews in the month of May. So that's relatively soon. How soon after that we can actually put the film into post-production, I'm not sure. It's being done pro bono for me, so I am not in charge of the schedule.
Right.
And there also then requires distribution. So once the film is produced, we then have to get it on a distribution channel. So if anyone is watching that finds this story to be compelling, please reach out to me. We're looking for help with distribution.
And I think Andy will tell you that Adventurers Club is always open for a private screening if you so choose.
Yeah,
We'd be honored.
Just about to mention. Thank you.
I think
Yeah.
that
Me
would be
to
a
it.
great idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be a
work
great
well.
idea. Yeah.
So, just to tie something up, because you mentioned, all that heavy camera gear. So you started with a 28-pound pack. What was your pack weight at the end?
I was hovering anywhere between 19 and 22 pounds base.
Still with all the camera gear.
No,
So you eliminated some camera gear.
I did. I sent back my mini tripod and my gimbal and one of my phones.
Yeah.
Which-
Why'd you have 2 phones? Drug deals on the side?
Well, two reasons. Interestingly enough, if you go to my Instagram or Facebook, I don't have a ton of followers, but the followers that I do have are very loyal, and so I have a work phone, where
So you keep all that stuff on
keep all that stuff
compartmentalized, so to speak.
compartmentalized, and then I have a phone for only my family.
Yeah.
But the other reason is because I'm a dancer and I do yoga, and I could have called my journey, instead of the Earthwalk, I could have called it handstanding across America, or dancing across America, because I would stop in these places and set up one phone with the music and the other phone with the video. Because you can't do a video and play music at the same time. So that was really nice for me to be able to dance and film at the same time. It was the same with the 2-camera angle on the interviews. I could set up both cameras, one on the tripod, one on the gimbal, and have a relatively professional setup for an amateur documentarian on the road.
Right.
So it worked really well. I think that once I got a lot of great content, I realized that I could turn and I got a new iPhone. I got the iPhone 10, that I could do a lot of the same stuff with that phone and not have the 2-camera angle, but
Worth the wait, right?
worth the loss of weight.
Right.
Yeah, worth the weight loss.
Yeah. What else we got, Andy?
All right. Lauren Mayfield says background looks a little different. Looks nice. Thank you, Lauren, for that.
Thanks, babe.
I was going to say.
Matt 90068 says great cave story. Sure was.
Thank you,
what
Matt.
else do we got here? Oh, question from Rockroll. In Slab City, did you ever meet a girl named Thursday or Crystal?
I wish I met a girl named Thursday. That's a cool name.
And by the way,
Not as cool as Meatballs, obviously. No, we probably would have gotten along. I don't recall meeting either of those folks, but the community is pretty tight-knit, and I bet if I ever go back there, I would run into them, or they might have heard of me.
yeah, for sure. And by the way, I totally get where you're coming from about Slab City. It's a nice spot and everything, but like when I was there, I just had to get out.
Yeah.
Pretty rough place.
Yeah.
Like I said, I've been to Salvation Mountain, but I haven't been to Slab City.
Yeah.
Yeah. Last question that we have here, it looks like. Can you speak to the mindset for a long distance hike? Considering the Camino de Santiago, would love your opinion on mental and physical preparation.
Yeah. Actually, the Camino de Santiago is one that's on my next up list.
That's the one that goes from the Pyrenees or somewhere in
Spain and France.
Spain, France, all the way across it.
Yeah, it's about 500 miles. So
Compostela de Santiago?
I'm not 100% sure.
But it ends at the Atlantic Ocean, right?
I'm also not 100% sure. I don't know that much about the trail.
This is on my list too.
I haven't looked at anything yet because I haven't even had good Wi-Fi really since I've been back from the trip. But so many people that I met along the way asked me, "Are you going to do the Camino next, or the PCT next? Or the AT next?" So I will say, based on the folks that I've spoken to, who have done the Camino, they highly recommend it, number one. Number two, can I speak to the mindset? Yes, I can. You need to feel comfortable without intimacy. So the psychological part of this is multifaceted. There's the danger. So there's preparation for danger. That's human, animal, and elements. There's the stamina. Mentally, can I wake up every morning? The stamina and discipline. So can I wake up every morning and do my miles every day? Can I get to the next town that I need to get to? So it's not necessarily about training in miles. It's about
physically.
training your brain. I mean, training in miles is important, but the next part of it is that intimacy level. So how intimate are you with yourself is a question that I would pose to anyone considering a thru hike. Can you make yourself laugh? Are you comfortable talking to yourself and knowing that you're going to go a little crazy, or does that thought make you feel ashamed or scared? How comfortable are you talking to strangers? How comfortable are you dealing with fear? How comfortable are you knowing that you smell bad and coming into a community, meeting people, knowing that you smell bad? Do you have body image issues? Are you ashamed? How comfortable are you going without sex? That I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about that, but it is a major thing. I mean, going a year, you meet people, maybe you are intimate with them, maybe you're not, but you have to be comfortable with yourself. You have to know when you get hungry and what you like to eat. And the more comfortable with yourself you are, the better you're going to survive on a long distance hike. As for the physical part, I can say this. The more training, the better. But I made the mistake of training as a runner first. So I thought, well, if I can run, then I definitely can walk. Wrong. Walking requires all the small muscles in the body. These small muscles that we don't use all the time. So they're different muscles than are required for running. So you actually need to train by walking. You need to train by walking with a pack that has stuff in it. Train your feet. Get those blisters beforehand, like I didn't do. Ramp up your miles slowly as you start the through hike. If you're going to be doing 20 miles a day, you start with 8. You start with 2, 3, 5, 10, but you don't do more than 8 or 9 for the first couple of days that you're walking. Yeah, I mean, I guess hopefully that answers the question.
No, I think that's a good answer.
Yeah.
All right, was that the last question, Andy?
Going through the
I
chat.
think so.
Yeah, I believe that's everything.
Well,
so,
Jenny Meatballs, thank you for joining us here at the Adventurers Club.
Yeah.
We're honored to have you. Everybody at home watching, thank you. We'll be here next Thursday at 7:45. Next week we have Chuck Jonke doing sonic safaris, exotic sounds and sonic safaris. So if any of you know Chuck Jonke, he's got a wide range of instruments and recordings that he's collected from around the world. He's going to be here to share some of those with us. So make sure you tune in. Don't forget